Hello everyone, and welcome to the Saiyan What Ifs. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Goku became the eternal Saiyan God. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Eternal Awakening. The universe trembled, not in the metaphorical sense that poets might employ, but in the literal, physical sense that made stars flicker and planets shudder across the vastness of space. Reality itself seemed to hiccup as waves of energy unlike anything witnessed in eons rippled outward from a singular point in Universe 7. At the epicenter stood a man, though man had perhaps ceased to be the appropriate term. Son Goku hovered above a landscape reduced to molten glass, his opponent nothing more than scattered atoms dispersed by the winds. The Saiyan's normally spiky black hair had transformed to a crystalline silver blue, radiating an aura containing what appeared to be miniature galaxies and cosmic phenomena. His eyes, once obsidian, now reflected the birth and death of stars. He had expected the familiar red-haired form of Super Saiyan God. A temporary power boost achieved through ritual. This was something entirely different. Something permanent. What happened? Goku's voice carried strange harmonics, as if multiple versions of himself spoke simultaneously across different realities. He stared at his hands, watching cosmic energy dance between his fingers like living constellations. The battle against Lord Zelos, a being who had emerged from a rift between universes with the stated purpose of cleansing Universe 7, should have ended with another victory, difficult, perhaps, but fundamentally similar to countless others. When pushed beyond his limits, Goku had reached for the divine power he'd tasted before. Something had changed. Instead of borrowing divine energy, he had somehow merged with it completely. Goku. Vegeta's voice cut through his contemplation, the Saiyan prince landing heavily on a rock formation that immediately cracked beneath his feet. Blood streaked his battle armor, one eye swollen shut. "What the hell did you do?" "I'm not sure," Goku answered, his voice gradually stabilizing into something closer to normal, though still carrying subtle echoes. "I tried to transform into Super Saiyan God, but then..." He trailed off, unable to articulate the experience. It had felt like breaking through an invisible barrier he'd been pushing against his entire life without realizing it was there. Like he had been a cup filled to the brim with water, and suddenly the cup itself had dissolved, allowing the contents to merge with an ocean. Vegeta approached cautiously, his expression a mixture of suspicion, awe, and something that might have been jealousy. "Your energy signature, it's not like anything I've ever felt. It's not even like a god of destruction." He narrowed his eyes. "It's like you're not fully here." Goku blinked, suddenly aware that Vegeta was right. Part of his consciousness seemed to extend beyond their immediate surroundings, beyond Earth, beyond even their universe. He could sense everything. "Whis," he said abruptly. "We need to find Whis." The words had barely left his mouth when reality distorted several meters away, the tall, blue-skinned angel stepping through as if he'd been summoned. For the first time in Goku's memory, Whis looked genuinely startled. "Oh my," the angel said, his typically composed demeanor slipping. "This is unexpected. You know what happened to me?" Goku asked. Whis approached, his staff held defensively before him in a way that made Goku uneasy. Had he become something dangerous? "Not precisely," Whis replied, circling Goku with unusual caution. "The form you achieved previously, Super Saiyan God, was a temporary infusion of divine energy channeled through Saiyan biology. This appears to be something else entirely." He paused, tapping his staff against the ground. "You've somehow fully merged with divine essence rather than simply channeling it." "Is that bad?" Goku asked, the question sounding ridiculously inadequate even to his own ears. Whis didn't immediately answer. Instead, he waved his staff, creating a mirrored surface in the air. "See for yourself." Goku stared at his reflection. His GI remained the same orange and blue, but his physical form had undergone subtle yet profound changes. His hair floated as if underwater, the crystalline silver-blue strands moving with currents invisible to normal perception. His skin occasionally rippled with galaxy-like patterns that appeared and disappeared like breathing. Most disturbing were his eyes, still shaped like his own, but within them swirled cosmic phenomena, as if his irises contained universe-scapes. "What am I?" he whispered. "I believe," Whis said carefully, "you've become something that hasn't existed in this cycle of reality." The ancient texts called it an eternal God, a being that exists simultaneously in both mortal and divine realms. Vegeta made a noise halfway between a scoff and a growl. "And what exactly does that mean?" "It means," came a new voice as Beerus materialized beside Whis, his feline features unusually grave, "that the cosmic hierarchy just got complicated. The god of destruction studied Goku with narrowed eyes, his tail flicking in agitation. "I sense the disruption from halfway across the universe. The Supreme Kai is probably having a conniption right now." Goku tried to focus, but his awareness kept expanding outward in disorienting waves. He could feel the life force of every being on Earth. He could sense the energy signatures of stars billions of miles away. Most disturbingly, he could perceive thin spots in reality, places where the membrane between dimensions had grown fragile. "Something's wrong," he said suddenly, his attention pulled toward a distant point in space. "Something's happening near. I think it's Nebula J9127. Whis and Beerus exchanged alarmed glances. "How do you know about that region?" Beerus demanded. "I can see it," Goku replied, gesturing vaguely at his head. "Or feel it. Both, maybe. There's a disturbance there, like something's being eaten." Whis' grip tightened on his staff. "That's a restricted zone under the direct protection of the Galactic Patrol's Special Forces Division. No mortal should even know it exists." "Well, he's not exactly mortal anymore, is he?" Vegeta pointed out with a scowl. Goku suddenly doubled over, a white-hot pain lancing through his mind. Images flooded his consciousness. A crystalline structure floating in space, beings of light fleeing from shadows that seemed to consume everything they touched. A female figure with iridescent skin firing arrows of pure energy into the darkness. "Someone's fighting there," he gasped. "Losing. I can feel them dying." Before anyone could respond, Goku's instincts took over. He reached into the new awareness spreading through him, located the dimensional coordinates of the disturbance, and vanished. The sensation was nothing like instant transmission. Instead of moving through space, Goku felt as if he'd stepped sideways through reality itself, bypassing normal dimensional constraints. One moment he stood on Earth, the next, he floated in the cold vacuum of deep space, surrounded by crystalline structures that resembled massive, geometrically perfect snowflakes. He didn't feel the cold. He didn't feel the need to breathe. His body seemed to adapt instantaneously to the environment. Before him, a battle raged around one of the largest crystal formations. Dark, amorphous entities flowed like liquid shadow, consuming smaller crystal structures. They moved with disturbing purpose, flowing together and apart in patterns that hurt Goku's eyes to follow. Fighting against them was a lone figure that immediately captured Goku's full attention. She moved with lethal precision, her body a blur of controlled violence. Humanoid but clearly not human, her skin shimmered with a metallic copper-gold iridescence that reflected the starlight. White hair cropped short-framed features that might have been carved from living metal, sharp and unforgiving. She wielded what appeared to be a bow formed of pure energy, firing arrows that temporarily dispersed the shadow entities where they struck. But there were too many, and Goku could see her energy flagging. A dark tendril lashed around her ankle, drawing a hiss of pain as it seemed to drain her life force on contact. Goku didn't hesitate. His fighting instincts, honed through countless battles across decades, took over. He extended his hand, surprised when cosmic energy gathered there without the familiar building sensation of ki. This power simply was, as if it had always existed and merely awaited his direction. He released it toward the shadow that had caught the woman's leg. The beam of silver-blue energy passed through the entity, causing it to dissolve with a sound like radio static. The woman's head snapped toward him, eyes widening, eyes with silver irises containing miniature galaxies not unlike his own. "Who?" she began, before dodging another attack with fluid grace. "What are you?" "I'm Goku," he replied simply, falling into a familiar fighting stance despite the unfamiliar environment. "Need some help?" She didn't waste time questioning further. "Target their central mass. They regenerate otherwise." Goku nodded, analyzing the enemies with experienced eyes. The shadow entities had no discernible features, but he could sense concentration points within their amorphous forms, nexuses of anti-energy that functioned as cores. He moved without conscious thought, his body flowing through combat stances developed across a lifetime of martial arts training. Each strike targeted a shadow's core, his new energy dispersing their substance with devastating efficiency. What might have appeared as chaotic movement to an observer was actually precisely calculated combat, each motion serving multiple purposes. The woman matched his rhythm perfectly, as if they'd fought together for years. When he moved left, she covered right. When he struck high, she targeted low. It was the fluid coordination that only came from two master fighters operating on instinct. Within minutes, the shadows retreated, flowing away from the crystal structure and disappearing into the darkness of space. "They'll return with reinforcements," the woman said, her bow dissolving as she lowered her arms. Blood, or something like it, with an iridescent quality, seeped from several wounds on her arms and torso. "They always do." Goku studied her with newfound perception. Her life force signature was unlike anything he'd encountered before, not human, not Saiyan, not like any alien race he knew. There was a divine quality to it, but different from the gods he'd met. "You're hurt," he observed. She gave him a look that could have frozen fire. Astute observation. Despite her wounds, she stood tall, shoulders squared, assessing him with calculated precision. "You're newly ascended. The divine energy practically bleeds off you." Goku blinked in surprise. "You can tell. I hunt gods for a living," she replied flatly. "Or I did, before." She gestured at the crystal structures. "Before all this started disappearing." "What are these things?" Goku asked, reaching out to touch one of the crystalline formations. It hummed beneath his fingertips, resonating with his own energy. "Dimensional anchors. They stabilize the boundaries between universes." Her expression darkened. "At least 30 have been consumed in the past month. No one noticed or cared until this one came under attack." "Why this one?" "Because it's directly connected to the divine treasury." She studied him with renewed suspicion. "Which you wouldn't know about you. Unless you were a celestial or working for them." Goku raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I'm just a guy who got caught up in something big. Until about an hour ago, I was, well, mostly human. Mostly Saiyan, actually." Recognition flickered across her metallic features. "The warrior race from Universe 7. Thought they were extinct except for a handful of survivors." Her eyes narrowed. "None of whom should have access to divine energy." "It's a long story." "I'm sure it is." She winced, pressing a hand against a particularly nasty wound on her side. "Look, whatever you are, I don't have time for this. More void entities will return soon, and I need to report the breach to." She stopped abruptly as both of them felt a shift in the space around them. The stars seemed to dim momentarily, as if something had passed between them and distant light sources. "Too late," she murmured, materializing her energy bow once more. "They're back." But the disturbance wasn't more shadow entities. Reality rippled, and Whis appeared with Beerus beside him, both looking decidedly displeased. "Son Goku," Whis said with uncharacteristic sternness, "you cannot simply vanish across universal boundaries without warning. The cosmic ripples you're creating are causing significant disturbances." Beerus's gaze fixed on the woman, his eyes widening slightly in recognition. "Vila, you'd retired to that backwater planet in the Andromeda Quadrant." "Lord Beerus," she acknowledged with a stiff nod that stopped just short of respectful. "Retirement didn't suit me." "You two know each other?" Goku asked. "We've crossed paths," Beerus said dismissively before focusing on the damaged crystal structures. "This is worse than we thought, Whis." "Indeed." The angel moved toward the largest crystal, passing his staff over its surface. "The dimensional barrier has been weakened by 73.4% in this sector. If this anchor fails completely, Universe 7's treasury access collapses," Vila finished. "And with it, the divine economy supporting your existence, Destroyer." Beerus bared his teeth. "Mind your tone, Hunter." "This isn't the time for posturing," Whis interrupted, uncharacteristically sharp. "Goku, your transformation has created a cosmic disturbance that may have accelerated these attacks. We need to return to Lord Beerus's planet immediately to assess the situation." "What about her?" Goku gestured toward Vila, who stood with proud defiance despite her injuries. She's hurt, and those shadow things will come back. I don't need your, Vila began. Bring her, Beerus cut in. The Supreme Kai will want to question her anyway. She's been tracking these incidents longer than anyone. Whis nodded in agreement. Very well, everyone, please gather close. Vila hesitated, clearly reluctant to accept help. Her silver eyes met Goku's, assessing him with centuries of ingrained suspicion. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her, because she stepped forward with a resigned sigh. Fine, but only because I need to report directly to the Supreme Kai anyway. As Whis prepared to transport them, Goku felt another wave of awareness wash over him. For a moment, he could perceive countless realities simultaneously, trillions of lives across multiple universes, timelines branching in infinite variations. And somewhere, watching from between dimensions, Omething Ancient stirred in response to his awakening. The transition to Beerus's planet was instantaneous, but for Goku, it felt like moving through layers of reality, each one distinct yet interconnected. He could see the cosmic threads binding different dimensions together, the pathways Whis navigated with casual mastery. When they materialized, Vegeta was already there, pacing impatiently across the manicured lawn. About time, the Saiyan prince growled. What happened to? I'll be right back after I check on something, Kakarot. Goku smiled apologetically, the expression momenta. Wryly returning him to his usual self despite the cosmic energy still swirling in his eyes. Sorry, Vegeta, I didn't mean to teleport away like that. You didn't teleport, Whis corrected, leading THM toward the massive tree at the center of the planet. You performed dimensional slipstreaming, moving between layers of reality rather than through space. A concerning ability for one so newly divine. Vila limped behind them, stubbornly refusing assistance despite her injuries. Her silver eyes darted around, taking in every detail of her surroundings with practiced vigilance. When Vegeta moved too suddenly in her direction, an energy dagger materialized in her hand in an instant. Easy, Goku said, stepping between them. He's my friend. Friend, Vegeta muttered under his breath. Rival is more accurate. Vela's weapon didn't vanish, but she lowered it slightly. I don't do easy, Saiyan. Not after what I've seen these past months. Inside the temple-like structure beneath Beerus's tree, Whis directed them to a circular room with walls that shifted like liquid starlight. At the center stood a table that appeared to be carved from a single massive crystal similar to the structures they'd seen in space. Sit down, the angel instructed, and try not to touch anything, Goku. Your energy is still highly unstable. Goku obediently took a seat, though he noticed with some conk. That the crystal table hummed and brightened in response to his proximity. Sorry about that, I'm still figuring this out. What exactly is this? Vegeta demanded, remaining standing with his arms crossed. What happened to you, Kakarot? Before Goku could attempt an explanation, the air shimmered and the Supreme Kai appeared, accompanied by his attendant Kibito. The divine being's normal, composed expression was replaced by one of barely contained panic. It's true, he gasped upon seeing Goku. The cosmic disturbances, they were caused by you. Whis nodded gravely. It appears, Son Goku has somehow achieved eternal god status. The Supreme Kai's face drained of color. Impossible. That state was sealed away eons ago, after the Divergence Wars. Evidently not sealed well enough, Beerus remarked dryly, settling into his floating chair with a deceptively casual posture that Goku recognized as heightened alertness. I keep hearing these terms, Goku said, frustration edging into his voice. Eternal God, divine treasury, dimensional anchors, can someone please explain what's happening in terms I can understand? The Supreme Kai opened his mouth, likely to deliver a lengthy explanation. But it was Vila who spoke first. The multiverse is collapsing, piece by piece, she said bluntly. Something is consuming the connective tissue between dimensions. The shadows, void entities, as the Celestials call them, are just symptoms of a larger disease. Her silver eyes fixed on Goku. And somehow, your transformation is connected to all of it. That's not possible, Kibito protested. The emergence of an eternal cannot cause dimensional decay. Unless, Whis mused, it was triggered by the decay rather than causing it. All eyes turned to the angel, whose expression had become unnervingly serious. Explain, Beerus commanded. The ancient texts describe eternal gods as cosmic responses to existential threats, Whis said slowly. They don't emerge randomly. They appear when the multiverse itself is in danger. So you're saying I transformed because something bad was already happening? Goku asked, trying to follow the complex discussion. Precisely, Whis confirmed. Your battle with Lord Zelos may have merely been the catalyst, not the cause. The question is, what existential threat could be severe enough to trigger the emergence of an eternal after all this time? The missing gods, Vila said suddenly. The room went silent. What missing gods? The Supreme Kai asked carefully. Vela's expression darkened. Over the past 6 months, her teen minor deities have disappeared without trace. Most were boundary guardians, minor gods responsible for maintaining the barriers between dimensional planes. Why haven't we heard about this? Beerus demanded. Because they were minor gods from remote universal sectors, Vila replied with a hint of bitterness. No one important enough for the destroyers or Supreme Kais to notice. I only act the pattern because hunting gods is my specialty. You hunt gods? Goku asked, both disturbed and intrigued. A cold smile curved Vela's metallic lips. Only the ones who deserve it. I was in by Lord Beerus's predecessor to track divine beings who violated cosmic law. Beerus made a dismissive noise. A cosmic bounty hunter, nothing more. The practice was discontinued ages ago. Officially, Vila agreed with a dangerous gleam in her eye. Whis cleared his throat diplomatically. Perhaps we should return to the matter at hand. If boundary gods are disappearing and dimensional anchors are being destroyed, the integrity of the multiverse could indeed be compromised. And I'm supposed to help fix this somehow? Goku asked, looking down at his hands, where cosmic energy still danced beneath his skin. That would appear to be the case, the Supreme Kai said. Though how, exactly, I cannot say. The records regarding eternal gods are ancient and fragmentary at best. Goku felt a wave of frustration. His entire life had been straightforward in purpose if not in execution. Become stronger, protect his loved ones, enjoy the thrill of battle against worthy opponents. This cosmic responsibility was something else entirely. I need to get back to Earth, he said suddenly. Chi-Chi and Gohan. They need to know what's happening. An awkward silence fell over the room. Goku, the Supreme Kai said gently. Your transformation has changed your fundamental nature. Your connection to the mortal realm has been altered. What does that mean? Goku demanded, rising from his seat. The crystal table beneath his hands cracked slightly, energy seeping into the fissures. It means, Whis explained, that your presence on Earth could be dangerous until you learn to control your divine energy. The power you now possess could have unpredictable effects on mortal beings, even those you care about. The implications hit Goku like a physical blow. I can't see my family. Not yet, Whis said. Not until we understand the full nature of what you've become and you learn to contain your power. Goku felt something he rarely experienced, helplessness. He could sense his family on Earth. Could almost see them going about their day, unaware that everything had changed. The thought of being separated from them indefinitely sent a surge of emotion through him that manifested as visible ripples in the air around his body. Careful, Vila warned, wincing as she shifted in her seat. Divine emotional outbursts can tear holes in reality. With visible effort, Goku reined in his feelings. The energy distortions subsiding. Then teach me, he said to Whis. Teach me to control this so I can see my family again. It's not that simple, the angel replied. Tradition. Divine training won't be sufficient for an eternal. We need all help, Vila interrupted unexpectedly. All eyes turned to her in surprise. What? She challenged. I've studied divine energy patterns for centuries. I know how gods operate better than most gods themselves. She fixed Goku with an appraising look. Besides, he helped me fight the void entities when he had no obligation to do so. I repay my debts. This is highly irregular, the Supreme Kai protested. So is his entire existence, Vila countered, gesturing at Goku. Irregular seems to be the theme of the day. Whis studied her thoughtfully. Your expertise could indeed be valuable, particularly regarding the missing boundary gods. But training an eternal requires more than technical knowledge. Then find others to help, Vila suggested with a shrug that failed to hide her wince of pain. But you need someone who understands divine energy from an outsider's perspective, and that's me. I'm fine with it, Goku said. Something about Vela's directness appealed to him. No flowery speech, no hidden agenda, just blunt honesty and capability. Beerus yawned dramatically. Well, that's settled then. Whis and E Hunter will babysit our new god while the Supreme Kai investigates these disappearances. He fixed his golden eyes on Goku. Try not to destroy reality while you're learning the ropes. What about me? Vegeta demanded. I'm not just going back to Earth while Kakarot ascends to godhood. Actually, the Supreme Kai interjected, your assistance would be most welcome, Vegeta. If something is targeting divine beings, we need strong mortal allies who can operate where we might be vulnerable. Vegeta's expression shifted from annoyance to interest. You want me to hunt whatever's hunting gods? With proper backup, yes. The Supreme Kai confirmed. Your combat experience and power would be invaluable. This seemed to satisfy the Saiyan prince, whose pride would never allow him to admit that he was concerned about being left behind by Goku's latest transformation. Fine, he agreed, but I want full access to any information you gather about these threats. And when the time comes to confront whatever's behind this, I expect to be on the front line. As the others continued discussing strategy, Goku felt his awareness expanding again, drifting beyond the confines of Beerus's planet. The sensation was disorienting, like dreaming while awake. He could perceive distant worlds, sense the life forces of countless beings across the universe. And somewhere, just beyond his perception, something vast and ancient watched him in return. Focus, Vela's voice cut through his drifting consciousness. She had moved to sit beside him, her silver eyes reflecting his own. Ground yours. LF in this reality before you get lost between worlds. How did you know what was happening? Goku asked. I recognize the signs. Newly divine beings often experience dimensional slippage, their consciousness drifting between realities. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch unexpectedly warm against his skin. Find an anchor, something uniquely tied to this reality that you can focus on. Goku closed his eyes, searching for something to ground him. His mind immediately went to his family, Chi-Chi's determined spirit, Gohan's kind heart, Goten's infectious laughter. But thinking of them why heightened his sense of distance and loss. Instead, he focused on the immediate. The firm pressure of Vela's hand on his arm, the subtle hum of divine energy in the crystal chamber, the familiar ickle of Vegeta's power signature nearby. Gradually, his awareness contracted, centering once more in the present reality. Better, Vela observed, removing her hand. You learn quickly. I've had a lot of practice adapting to new situations, Goku replied with a small smile. You'll need it. Her expression turned serious. The path ahead won't be easy. Eternal or not, you've entered a realm of existence where the rules are different and the stakes higher than anything you've faced before. Goku nodded, the weight of responsibility settling over him like a physical burden. Yet beneath the concern, a familiar sensation stirred, the thrill of facing a new challenge, of pushing beyond previous limitations. I understand, he said. But I've never backed down from a fight, and I'm not out to start now, especially not when my family and friends might be in danger. Something like approval flickered in Vela's metallic features. Good, because from what I've seen, the multiverse is going to need every ounce of that Saiyan stubbornness in the days to come. As if to punctuate her words, the crystal table between them suddenly pulsed with light, a crack spreading across its surface like lightning. Images flashed within the fracture, shadowy tendrils consuming stars, crystal structures shattering, and a figure wreathed in darkness watching from beyond the veil of reality. It's accelerating, Whis observed grimly as all conversation ceased. The dimensional decay is spreading faster than anticipated. Then we don't have time for lengthy preparation, Vela concluded, rising despite her injuries. He needs to learn on the job. That would be extremely dangerous, the Supreme Kai protested. Vela's laugh was harsh and without humor. More dangerous than doing nothing while reality unravels. I think not. She turned to Goku. There's another dimensional anchor under attack in quadrant 616. We can continue your first lesson there, assuming you're up for it. Goku stood, cosmic energy swirling around his form as his determination solidified. I'm ready. You're really not, Vila replied with brutal honesty. But ready or not, the multiverse waits for no one, not even an eternal God. As Whis prepared to transport them to the endangered dimensional anchor, Goku felt the weight of countless lives, mortal and divine, pressing against his consciousness. The carefree fighter who had spent his life pursuing the next challenge now faced a responsibility that spanned realities. But at his core, he remained Son Goku, a warrior who never gave up, no matter the odds. Let's go, he said, his voice carrying the quiet confidence that had seen him through countless battles. I've got a lot to learn, and it sounds like we don't have much time. As they departed, none of them noticed the subtle shift in the shadows of the chamber, a momentary darkening that had nothing to do with light and everything to do with the attention of something ancient turning its full focus upon the newly ascended eternal God. The hunt had begun. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Realms Beyond. Dimensional slipstreaming felt nothing like instant transmission, where the latter was a seamless transition. This was a journey through layers of existence never meant for mortal perception. Goku moved between membranes of reality, witnessing shattered fragments of possibilities, worlds where history had taken different turns. Timelines that had collapsed or flourished based on decisions both monumental and microscopic. Focus on our destination, Vila commanded beside him, her voice solemn. How audible despite the absence of air in this between space. Don't get distracted by the echoes. Easier said than done. Goku's enhanced perception caught glimpses of alternate selves, versions where he'd made different choices, lived different lives. In one, he'd never hit his head as a child and had conquered Earth as Kakarot, the Saiyan warrior. In another, he'd failed against Frieza, and Earth had fallen shortly after. The weight of infinite possibilities threatened to overwhelm his consciousness. There, Whis indicated, his staff cutting through the dimensional fog to reveal their target, Quadrant 616. Home to a nexus point where multiple realities intersected. They emerged into a realm of impossible architecture. Massive geometric structures floated in a sea of luminescent energy, their surfaces inscribed with mathematical formulas so complex they seemed to shift and evolve under Goku's gaze. Bridges of pure light connected floating islands where gravity appeared optional, their direction changing depending on one's perspective. What is this place? Goku asked, his voice echoing strangely. A dimensional workshop, Whis explained. One of several where the fabric of reality is maintained and repaired. Maintained by whom? Goku turned slowly, taking in the alien landscape. His question was answered by a sharp voice that cut through the ambient hum of energy. By me, intruder. And you've just violated approximately 73 protocols by entering without authorization. A woman materialized before them, though, woman, seemed an insufficient term. Her foe, was humanoid but composed of what appeared to be living mathematics. Equations flowed across her skin like tattoos, numeric sequences assembling and disassembling with each movement. Her hair defied conventional physics, floating in geometric patterns that rearranged themselves continuously. Most striking were her eyes, multifaceted like diamonds, reflecting different spectrums of light with each subtle shift of her gaze. Arya, Whis acknowledged with a respectful inclination of his head. The situation warrants direct intervention. The mathematical being, Arya, directed her crystalline gaze toward Goku, analytical and cold. This is the disturbance I've been monitoring. A newly ascended divine entity with completely unstable energy patterns. She circled Goku, her movements precise and measured. The dimensional ripples from his transformation have disrupted 16 critical calculations across 3 universal sectors. I'm sorry, Goku offered, unsure how to respond to accusations of mathematical disruption. Arya ignored his apology, continuing her assessment with clinical detachment. Fascinating. The divine integration is nearly complete, yet retains elements of mortal consciousness. The dimensional resonance frequencies are unlike anything in my databases. He's an eternal, Vila stated flatly. Arya froze mid-calculation, the equations flowing across her skin momentarily stuttering. Impossible. That phenomenon was theoretically sealed during the primary reality recalibration. Evidently not, Whis replied. And his emergence coincides with the dimensional decay you've been attempting to counterbalance. This statement transformed Arya's demeanor instantly. The cold analysis vanished, replaced by intense focus. Show me your energy signature, she demanded, facing Goku directly. Now, how exactly do I like this? Vila interrupted, stepping forward to place her hand on Goku's chest. Focus your energy, but don't project it. Just let it become visible. Goku concentrated, drawing on the strange new power that flowed through him. Unlike Ki, which required conscious effort to gather and focus, this divine energy responded instantaneously to his intention. A silver-blue aura manifested around him, containing swirling galactic patterns and mathematical symbols he didn't recognize. Arya's multifaceted eyes widened. She extended a hand toward his aura, not quite touching it. Extraordinary. The harmonic resonance is a perfect counterpoint to the decay frequency. Her gaze shifted to Whis. You believe his emergence is a response to the dimensional deterioration. That appears to be the most logical conclusion, Whis confirmed. The ancient texts described Eternals as cosmic antibodies, responses to existential threats. Goku shifted uncomfortably under Arya's intense scrutiny. So I'm some kind of multiversal immune response. An imperfect analogy, but essentially correct, Arya replied. Though you're remarkably unstable for a cosmic correction mechanism. She waved a hand, creating a complex three-dimensional model of interlocking geometries in the air between them. These are the dimensional barriers protecting this quadrant. The red sections indicate points of decay. The visualization showed alarming crimson fractures spreading throughout the structure like cracks in glass. It's getting worse, Vila observed, her hunter's eyes narrowing. The deterioration has accelerated since last week. By 217% precisely, Arya confirmed. At current progression rates, catastrophic breach will occur within approximately 94 standard hours. And what happens then? Goku asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Total dimensional collapse for this sector, Arya stated matter-of-factly. Followed by cascading failures across connected realities. How many lives are we talking about? Approximately 7.3 trillion sentient beings across 1,142 inhabited worlds. The weight of those numbers hit Goku like a physical blow. Throughout his life, he'd fought to protect Earth and its people. The scale of this threat dwarfed anything he'd previously confronted. We need to stop it, he said, his voice hardening with resolve. Whatever's causing this, we need to find it and stop it. A commendable sentiment, Arya replied coolly, but precipitous action without adequate understanding would likely exacerbate the situation. Your untrained divine energy could potentially accelerate the decay if improperly applied. Then teach me, Goku countered, meeting her diamond gaze without flinching. Show me how to use this power to help. Quote, something flickered across Arya's mathematical features, surprise, perhaps, at his directness. Training an Eternal would require time we don't have. Not necessarily, Whis interjected thoughtfully. If I understand correctly, your dimensional workshops exist partially outside normal time flow. Arya nodded reluctantly. We operate on a different tempora. L frequency to maintain dimensional stability during repairs. Then perhaps, Whis began, but was interrupted by a sudden alarm that manifested as discordant musical tones echoing through the geometric structures. Arya's form tensed, the equations flowing across her skin accelerating to blur. Breach in progress. Section 12, Partition Delta. Without waiting for the others, she vanished in a flash of mathematical symbols. Goku instinctively followed, allowing his new awareness to track her dimensional signature. Vila and Whis appeared beside him moments later as they materialized in what appeared to be a massive spherical chamber. The scene before them was chaos incarnate. A swirling vortex of darkness had formed at the center of the chamber, its edges consuming the geometric patterns that seemed to comprise the very fabric of reality in this place. Around it, beings similar to Arya, though less distinct, as if they were partial copies, fought against amorphous shadow entities that poured through the breach. Void incursion, Vila hissed, materializing her energy bow. Bigger than any I've seen. Arya stood at the forefront of the defense, her hands weaving complex patterns at generated barriers of pure mathematics, equations made manifest that temporarily held back the encroaching darkness. The calculations aren't holding, she called without turning. The breach frequency keeps shifting. Goku didn't wait for instructions. Battle was a language he understood fluently, regardless of the context. He assessed the situation in an instant, the defensive formation, the enemy's movement patterns, the critical vulnerabilities in their position. Whis, reinforce the left flank, he directed with natural authority. Vila, target the shadow cores like before. I'll try to stabilize the breach. He moved without waiting for acknowledgement, instinct and experience guiding his actions. The shadow entities swarmed toward him, drawn to his divine energy like moths to flame. Unlike ordinary combat, Goku found his new abilities responded to intention rather than technique. When he visualized pushing the shadows back, cosmic force manifested to do exactly that. But the shadows adapted quickly, flowing around his energy projections with increasing sophistication. These weren't mindless entities, they were learning, coordinating. They're different from the ones we fought before, Vila shouted, her arrows finding shadow cores with unerring precision. More organized. Goku nodded grimly. They're being directed. He could sense it now, a consciousness behind the chaos, calculating and cold. Not evil in any human sense of the word, but utterly alien in its purpose. He pushed through the swarm of shadows, batting aside their attacks with concentrated bursts of divine energy. His target was the breach itself, a wound in reality that pulsed with anti-light. Don't approach the breach directly, Arya called out in alarm. Your unstable energy signature could. Too late. As Goku neared the dimensional tear, his divine aura interacted with the swirling void in unexpected ways. The breach seemed to respond to his presence, pulsing in a rhythm that matched his energy signature. For a moment, it began to seal itself, the edges drawing together as if his very existence were an antidote to the corruption. Then, without warning, the breach expanded violently. The sudden release of energy threw Goku backward, sending him crashing through several geometric structures before he regained control of his momentum. I told you not to approach directly, Arya snapped, appearing beside him in a flash of equations. Your energy resonates with the breach, but without proper calibration, it creates feedback loops. Sorry, Goku replied, recovering quickly. Quote, but I felt something on the other side, something watching us. Arya's diamond eyes narrowed. Impossible. There is nothing outside the multiverse. I know what I sensed, Goku insisted. It was aware, calculating, almost like what? Vila demanded, joining them as she fired another volley of energy arrows into the swarm. Like it was studying us, Goku finished. Learning our defenses. Before Arya could respond, the shadows suddenly changed tactics. Instead of flowing randomly, they began to concentrate into a single massive form, a towering humanoid shape composed of swirling darkness. Where a face should have been, only a void existed, yet Goku had the distinct impression it was looking directly at him. Collective manifestation, Whis observed, his normally calm voice tightening. I haven't seen the void entities achieve this level of coordination in eons. The Shadow Colossus extended a massive hand toward Goku, and when it spoke, its voice resonated not through air but directly within their minds. Eternal. At last, the mental voice was not a single entity but a chorus of countless consciousnesses speaking in perfect unison. The sensation was profoundly unsettling. Like hearing a crowd speak with synchronized precision. We have waited, searched, consumed, for this moment. What are you? Goku demanded, floating forward to position himself protectively in front of the others. We are the Void Collective. The balance to your existence. The Colossus took a step forward, its form distorting space around it. Arya's mathematical assistants launched coordinated attacks against it, but their equations dissipated harmlessly against its surface. Your emergence signals the end of this cycle. As it was before, as it will be again. Goku felt a hill that had nothing to do with temperature. What cycle? The Colossus tilted its featureless head, the gesture unnervingly human despite its alien nature. Creation, destruction, recreation, the eternal pattern. Without warning, tendrils of darkness shot from the Colossus toward Goku with impossible speed. He raised his arms defensively, divine energy surging to create a barrier. The moment the shadows contacted his energy, Goku's consciousness exploded outward. Visions flooded his mind. The birth and death of universes, cycles of creation and destruction stretching back beyond comprehension. Civilizations rising and falling across countless realities, all overseen by beings of pure mathematics like Arya, maintaining the cosmic architecture. And through it all, the Void Collective watching, waiting at the edges of existence. He saw previous Eternals, beings like himself who had emerged at critical junctures when the multiverse faced extinction. Their faces were different, their forms unique to their origins. But their purpose had been the same: cosmic antibodies against existential threats. The vision shifted to show their endings, each Eternal eventually consumed by the very forces they opposed. Their divine energy absorbed into the cycle of recreation. You see now, your purpose, your fate. Goku tore himself free from the vision with a roar of defiance, his divine aura flaring outward with such intensity that the Shadow Colossus was forced back. I make my own fate, he declared, his voice carrying the authority of his new divine nature. And I won't let you destroy these realities. Drawing on instincts he didn't fully understand, Goku brought his hands together in a familiar position, but instead of gathering ki for a Kamehameha, he channeled his divine energy into a concentrated form. The power that built between his palms contained swirling galaxies and mathematical equations that flowed and evolved like living things. Divine harmonic wave, he shouted, releasing the energy not as a destructive beam but as an expanding wave of cosmic resonance. The energy washed over the Shadow Colossus, not destroying it but temporarily disrupting its collective consciousness. The unified form shuddered and began to break apart, individual shadow entities scattering in disarray. Arya seized the opportunity, her hands weaving complex patterns that generated a mathematical barrier around the dimensional breach. The resonance frequency of your attack, it matches the cosmic constant perfectly, she said, genuine surprise in her voice. How did you calculate that? I didn't, Goku admitted, breathing heavily from the exertion. It just felt right. Arya gave him a look of baffled frustration, as if his intuitive success violated some fundamental principle she held dear. Impossibly imprecise, yet functionally perfect. You make no mathematical sense. I get that a lot, Goku replied with a slight smile. The moment of victory was short-lived. Though scattered, the shadow entities quickly began to regroup, flowing back toward the breach which was straining against Arya's mathematical barriers. We can't hold this position indefinitely, Vila warned, her energy bow fading as she conserved her strength. We need to seal the breach completely. That would require a calibrated pulse of divine energy precisely matched to the dimensional frequency, Arya stated, her form flickering with the effort of maintaining her calculations. Without proper training, even an Eternal could not. Show me, Goku interrupted. Don't explain it, show me what the energy should feel like. Arya hesitated, clearly torn between mathematical precision and pragmatic necessity. Finally, she extended her hand. Physical contact will allow me to demonstrate the resonance pattern directly. It's highly irregular, but under the circumstances. Goku took her hand without hesitation. The moment their energies connected, a circuit completed. Arya's mathematical nature flowed partially into him, allowing him to perceive reality as she did, as living equations, harmonic patterns of cosmic significance, dimensional frequencies that could be manipulated with sufficient precision. There, she whispered, guiding his awareness toward a specific resonance. That pattern, it's the counter-frequency to the breach. Goku felt rather than saw the pattern S. He indicated, a complex rhythm that flowed against the chaotic discord of the tear in reality. It was like hearing a missing note in a song, feeling the gap where something should be. I've got it, he said, gently releasing her hand. The mathematical awareness receded, but the memory of the pattern remained. Everyone, get back. Whis guided the others to a safe distance as Goku approached the breach once more. This time, instead of raw divine energy, he focused on replicating the precise pattern Arya had shown him. It was like performing an incredibly complex kata, a martial arts form where every movement had to be executed with perfect precision. He extended both hands toward the breach, divine energy flowing from his body in mathematical sequences that even he didn't fully comprehend. The tear in reality responded, its chaotic edges beginning to align with the pattern he projected. The shadow entities sensed what he was attempting. They swarmed toward him en masse, abandoning all other targets in their desperate rush to stop him. Protect him, Arya commanded, surprising even herself with the urgency in her voice. Vila and Whis moved in perfect coordination, intercepting the shadow tide before it could reach Goku. Arya joined them, her mathematical constructs creating barriers that momentarily held sections of the swarm at bay. Goku barely noticed the battle raging around him. His entire consciousness was focused on the breach, feeling its discordant energies gradually harmonizing with the pattern he projected. It was working. The tear was beginning to close. Then, just as success seemed imminent, a voice spoke directly into his mind. Not yet, Eternal. Your journey begins. This wasn't the chorus of the Void Collective. This voice was singular, ancient, and terrifyingly familiar, though Goku was certain he'd never heard it before. A hand composed of shadow and starlight reached through the closing breach, impossibly large yet somehow contained within the dimensional tier. It moved with deliberate precision toward Goku, ignoring his attempts to repel it with divine energy. The hand touched his forehead for the briefest moment, but that contact was enough. Knowledge poured into Goku's mind, fragmented images of cosmic events, locations of other breaches across multiple universes, and a single word that burned itself into his consciousness. Chronos. The touch lasted less than a second before the hand withdrew. The breach collapsed with a silent implosion that sent shockwaves through the dimensional workshop, throwing everyone back. When the energy dissipated, the tear was gone. The shadow entities had vanished with it, leaving behind a workshop damaged but intact. Silence fell, broken only by the subtle hum of mathematical equations rebuilding damaged structures. Goku floated in place, momentarily stunned by the alien knowledge that had been forced into his mind. He saw places he'd never visited, recognized coordinates in dimensional space he shouldn't comprehend, and felt the ominous weight of a name, Chronos. Goku. Vila approached cautiously, her silver eyes studying him with concern. What happened? The breach collapsed suddenly. Something reached through, he replied, his voice distant. Something old. It showed me things. Whis appeared beside them, his expression unusually grave. What things, precisely? Other breaches, locations across different universes, and a name, Chronos. The effect of that name was immediate and dramatic. Arya's mathematical form visibly destabilized, equations flowing across her skin in chaotic, uncontrolled patterns. Whis' grip tightened on his staff to the point where the crystal orb atop it flashed in protest. That's not possible, Arya whispered, her voice losing its analytical precision. Chronos was sealed beyond the infinity veil during the first creation. He cannot return. You know this name? Goku asked, turning toward her. Every divine architect knows that name, Arya replied, struggling to regain her composure. Chronos, the god of endings. The one who believes all creation must periodically return to void for renewal. He was sealed away eons ago, Whis added, by the combined efforts of all creation deities across the multiverse. His philosophy, that cosmic corruption requires regular universal reset, was deemed too dangerous. Goku processed this information, connecting it with the fragmented knowledge that had been implanted in his mind. Then why contact me? Why show me these breach locations? Perhaps, Vila suggested grimly, because your emergence as an Eternal has created the perfect catalyst for his return. The implications hung heavily in the dimensional workshop. If an ancient god of endings sought to use Goku's new divine nature to further some cosmic reset, the consequences would be unimaginable. I need to see these locations, Goku decided, his voice hardening with resolve. If these breaches are connected to this Chronos, we need to understand what we're facing. That would be extremely dangerous without proper training, Arya objected, her analytical nature reasserting itself. Your divine energy is still wildly unstable. Traveling to multiple breach sites could accelerate the very deterioration we're trying to prevent. Then train me, Goku countered simply. You said this workshop exists outside normal time flow. We can use that to our advantage. Arya hesitated, her multifaceted eyes calculating possibilities with visible precision. The temporal differential would allow accelerated instruction. But teaching an Eternal is unprecedented. My methods are designed for mathematical beings, not transformed mortals. I'm a quick study, Goku replied with characteristic confidence. Especially when it comes to fighting. This isn't fighting, Arya corrected sharply. This is multidimensional harmonic calibration. Precise mathematical manipulation of cosmic constants. Infinitely more complex than physical combat. Goku smiled, a surprisingly gentle expression on his divine features. Everything is fighting if you look at it right. This is just a different kind of opponent. Song. Anything in his simple philosophy seemed to both frustrate and intrigue Arya. Her mathematical form shimmered as calculations ran visibly across her skin. Very well, she finally agreed. I will atom PT to instruct you in basic dimensional harmonization. But I maintain that this approach is irrational and likely to produce suboptimal results. That's his specialty, Vila remarked with a hint of dry humor. Irrational approaches with surprisingly effective results. Whis nodded in agreement. Indeed, Son Goku has made a career of defying logical expectations. I will inform Lord Beerus of these developments, Whis continued. And perhaps consult certain restricted archives regarding Chronos. There may be information about his sealing that could prove relevant. I'll track down leads on the missing boundary gods. Vila added. If Chronos is involved, there might be a pattern to their disappearances. Goku looked between them, struck by how quickly they had formed a functional team despite their diverse backgrounds. It reminded him of the many occasions throughout his life when disparate allies had united against common threats. Before we separate, he said, I need to check on something. He closed his eyes, focusing his divine awareness toward Earth, seeking the familiar energy signatures of his family and friends. The sensation was disorienting, like trying to locate specific droplets in an ocean of energy. Earth appeared to his senses as a swirling nexus of life and possibility, individual souls blending together in patterns too complex to easily differentiate. They're safe, Whis assured him. Understanding his intention, your transformation has not directly endangered Earth. Not yet, at least. The qualification wasn't reassuring, but Goku accepted it with a nod. How long will the training take? In real-world time, I mean. If we utilize the workshop's temporal differential at maximum capacity, Arya calculated, approximately 3 standard Earth days would equate to roughly 3 months of instruction within. That should be sufficient for preliminary harmonization techniques, Whis noted. Though mastery would require significantly longer. 3 days, Vila repeated. Already planning her investigation. I'll return here after gathering whatever information I can find about the missing gods. With that decided, Whis and Vila departed, leaving Goku alone with Arya in the damaged workshop. The mathematical beings who had fought alongside them were already repairing the structural damage, equations flowing like living things to restore the geometric patterns. Arya regarded Goku with her diamond eyes, her expression impossible to read. We should begin immediately. The dimensional disruptions will continue to accelerate regardless of our preparations. Goku nodded, his casual demeanor giving way to the focused intensity that emerged whenever he trained. I'm ready. No, Arya stated matter-of-factly, you are not. But necessity dictates that we proceed regardless. She gestured, creating a complex geometric shape between them. We will start with fundamental dimensional constants. Observe the mathematical pattern of this dodecahedral harmonic. 3 days in the outside world. 3 months within the temporal bubble Arya had created around a section of her dimensional workshop. For Goku, who had trained under diverse masters throughout his life, the experience was simultaneously familiar and utterly alien. Master Roshi had taught him martial arts fundamentals. King Kai had shown him spiritual techniques. Even Whis had instructed him in the refined control of godly ki. But Arya's teaching defied conventional understanding. She didn't simply instruct. She rewired his perception of reality itself. Again, she commanded, hovering cross-legged across from him in the crystalline training chamber. The 15th dimensional harmonic requires precise calibration between expansion and contraction phases. Goku closed his eyes, visualizing the mathematical pattern she demonstrated. Divine energy flowed from his body, attempting to replicate the complex geometric sequence that would stabilize a theoretical dimensional breach. The energy construct wavered, its edges losing cohesion as he struggled to maintain the precise mathematical ratio required. Incorrect, Arya stated without inflection. The harmonic ratio is degrading at an exponential rate. Goku opened his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead despite the absence of physical exertion. I can't think in equations the way you do. Evidently, she replied, though without the dismissive tone that had characterized her early instructions. After 3 months of intensive training, a grudging respect had developed between them. She studied him thoughtfully, calculations running visibly across her skin as she considered alternative approaches. Perhaps we're approaching this incorrectly. You're attempting to replicate my Methodology rather than adapting the principles to your own cognitive framework. In normal person language, a brief flicker of what might have been amusement crossed her mathematical features. You're trying to think like me instead of finding your own way to understand dimensional harmonics. This was progress. Weeks earlier, she would have simply insisted he follow her precise methods. Now, she was acknowledging that different approaches might achieve similar results. How would you suggest I approach it, then? Goku asked. Arya considered the question, her form shimmering slightly as she processed possibilities. Your strength lies in physical intuition and combat adaptation. Perhaps we should frame dimensional harmonization in terms your mind naturally comprehends. She waved a hand, dissolving the complex geometric model floating between them. In its place appeared a visualization that resembled two martial artists in combat. Consider dimensional breaches as opponents with specific fighting styles. She suggested. Each breach has a rhythm to its energy, like a combatant with a particular technique. Your task is not to overpower it but to counter its movements perfect. Until you create an opening to seal it. Goku's eyes lit with understanding. Like redirecting an opponent's energy against them. Precisely. The mathematical principles remain the same, but conceptual framework may be more accessible to your thought patterns. She demonstrated, manipulating the visualization so that one figure perfectly countered the movements of the other, creating a harmonious pattern rather than chaotic conflict. Let me try again, Goku said, closing his eyes and reimagining the dimensional harmonic as a martial arts form. This time, when he channeled his divine energy, it flowed in a pattern that mirrored the breach's theoretical energy signature, creating counter-pressures that gradually neutralized the dimensional distortion. The construct stabilized, maintaining its integrity without constant correction. Effective, Arya acknowledged, genuine surprise in her voice. Utterly unorthodox, but functionally equivalent to standard harmonization procedures. Goku opened his eyes to find his energy construct still floating between them, a perfect model of dimensional repair. It's like finding an opponent's rhythm and then disrupting it at exactly the right moment. An imprecise but apparently functional analogy, Arya agreed. She studied him with renewed interest, her diamond eyes refracting light in complex patterns. Your cognitive adaptability is unexpected. Coming from her, this was high praise indeed. Over the weeks that followed, they developed a training methodology that translated Arya's mathematical principles into forms Goku could intuitively grasp. Physical movements became proxies for dimensional manipulations. Combat strategies were repurposed for reality stabilization. Gradually, Goku began to comprehend the complex interconnections between dimensions, not through equations, but through a fighter's understanding of balance, momentum, and counterforce. During one particularly intense session, as Goku successfully stabilized a simulated CLASS-4 breach, he noticed something peculiar in Arya's expression as she observed him. What? He asked, letting the energy construct dissolve. Your methods defy all established protocols, she replied, yet achieve results that sometimes exceed theoretical optimization parameters. Is that good or bad? It's interesting. She created a new simulation, nay more complex than any they'd attempted previously. No divine architect would approach dimensional harmonization through physical intuition rather than mathematical precision. It should not work, but it does, Goku pointed out. Yes, she acknowledged. That is what makes it interesting. As their training progressed, Goku noticed subtle changes in Arya's behavior. Her initially rigid stance on mathematical perfection gradually gave way to a cautious appreciation for his intuitive approaches. Though she maintained her analytical demeanor, her interactions became less coldly clinical. On rare occasions, when a particularly unorthodox solution succeeded against all mathematical probability, Goku would catch a flicker of something almost like wonder in her diamond eyes. For his part, Goku found himself increasingly fascinated by Arya's perspective. Her view of reality as living mathematics, patterns and equations that could be manipulated and harmonized, offered insights his battle-oriented mind would never have conceived independently. During their brief rest periods, he would ask questions about her existence, curious about the life of a divine architect. Were you created this way? Or did you evolve into this form? He asked during one such break, sitting cross-legged in the crystalline chamber while Arya hovered nearby, continuously running calculations even in repose. Neither, she replied. I chose this form. You chose to become living math. Something like amusement flickered across her features. Mathematical precision is the fundamental language of creation. This form allows me to perceive and manipulate reality in its purest state. But what were you before? Arya was silent for a moment, equations flowing more slowly across her skin, a sign Goku had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. I was less defined, she finally answered. A consciousness without specific form, existing within the primordial mathematical soup of early creation. When the multiverse required architects to maintain its structural integrity, I volunteered for condensation into this form. You gave up freedom for responsibility, Goku observed. Her diamond eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. An interesting interpretation. Most beings assume I sacrificed emotion for intellect, warmth for precision. Few recognize the choice as one of purpose rather than limitation. I understand choosing a path because it's necessary, not because it's easy, Goku replied. That's been my life too, in a different way. Something shifted in Arya's mathematical form, a subtle realignment of the equations flowing across her skin, as if his words had triggered a recalculation of some internal formula. Before she could respond, a dimensional ripple interrupted their conversation. The crystalline walls of the training chamber briefly distorted, indicating a disturbance in the workshop's temporal field. Our isolation period is concluding, Arya announced, rising to her full height. External time synchronization will occur in approximately 3 minutes. Goku stood, rolling his shoulders as if after physical exertion, though their training had been primarily mental and energetic. Do you think I'm ready to handle real breaches? Your techniques remain unorthodox and your understanding of fundamental principles is unconventional at best. She paused, equations shifting across her form. However, your results consistently achieve 91.7% effectiveness compared to standard protocols, which exceeds minimum operational parameters for field application. Goku grinned. That sounded almost like a compliment. It was a statistical assessment, she corrected, though without her initial coldness. But yes, I believe you are adequately prepared to address actual dimensional breaches, provided you don't attempt anything beyond the harmonization techniques we've practiced. The temporal bubble around them began to dissolve, reality outside gradually synchronizing with their accelerated timeframe. As the dimensional workshop came back into focus around them, they found Whis waiting patiently, staff in hand. Your timing is impeccable, Arya noted. External synchronization is completing now. One develops a sense for these things after a few billion years, Whis replied with his characteristic smile. His gaze shifted to Goku, assessing the changes 3 months of intensive training had wrought. You've made progress. It wasn't a question, but Goku nodded anyway. Arya's a good teacher. Tough, but good. My methodologies were severely compromised to accommodate his learning style, Arya stated, though Goku detected a hint of something almost like pride beneath her mathematical precision. Nevertheless, the results are functionally adequate. High praise indeed, Whis remarked with a knowing smile. Lord Beerus sends his regards, along with news that may interest you both. What news? Goku asked. Vila has returned with information regarding the missing boundary gods. And she's not alone. Before either could question this cryptic statement, reality rippled nearby. Vila materialized in the workshop, her hunter's stance alert as always. But Goku's attention was immediately drawn to the figure beside her, a woman unlike any he had seen before. She appeared as a living shadow, her form composed of darkness that somehow contained infinite depth rather than absence. Where her face should have been, swirling patterns of dark matter formed features of striking beauty. A crown of what seemed to be black celestial fire framed her head. And her eyes glowed with the light of distant stars trapped in darkness. This is Misa, Vila introduced without preamble. The Shadow Empress, ruler of a pocket dim ancient between realms where forgotten or displaced beings find refuge. Misa inclined her head slightly, the movement causing ripples in the darkness of her form. Eternal, she acknowledged, her voice resonating with unusual harmonics. Your emergence has created quite the stir across the dimensional planes. I'm still getting used to that title, Goku admitted, studying her with undisguised curiosity. Your energy signature is unusual, not quite divine, but not mortal either. A smile formed in the swirling darkness of her face. My realm exists in the shadows between universes, neither fully in one dimension nor another. My nature reflects my domain. Misa has provided valuable information, Vila explained, her silver eyes serious. 3 of the missing boundary gods were last seen near entrances to her shadow realm. She's been tracking unusual activity along the borders of her domain for months. Void entities have been probing my realm's defenses with increasing frequency, Misa confirmed. Initially, I believed they were simply opportunistic, drawn to the unique energy signature of the shadow dimension. But recent patterns suggest coordinated reconnaissance. Coordinated by Chronos? Goku asked directly. The effect of the name was immediate. Misa's shadow form rippled with visible distress, the starlight in her eyes flaring briefly. Where did you hear that name? Goku briefly explained his encounter with the entity during the breach ceiling, the hand of shadow and starlight, the implanted knowledge, the mysterious communication. As he spoke, Misa's expression became increasingly grave, the darkness of her form deepening until it seemed to absorb light from the surrounding workshop. This confirms my worst fears, she said when he finished. The refugees, who have sought sanctuary in my realm, some speak of a time before the current cosmic cycle, when a god named Chronos sought to purify creation through complete dissolution. Chronos was sealed beyond the infinity veil, Arya stated. Though with less certainty than before, the combined power of all creation deities ensured his imprisonment would last until the natural end of this cosmic cycle. Unless, Whis interjected thoughtfully, something has weakened the seals. All eyes turned to the angel, whose normally pleasant expression had given way to rare seriousness. The archives contained troubling information. He explained. Chronos's prison was designed to be maintained by a network of boundary gods, minor deities who reinforced the dimensional barriers between his prison and our reality. If enough of these gods have been eliminated, the seals would deteriorate, Arya concluded, calculations flowing rapidly across her skin as she processed the implications. Creating breaches that the void entities could exploit to further weaken the barriers. A cascading failure, Misa added grimly. Each breach makes the next easier, each missing boundary god weakens the overall structure. Goku absorbed this information, connecting it with the fragmented knowledge Chronos had placed in his mind. The breach locations, the sense of ancient patience, the feeling of calculated intent behind the chaos. He showed me these locations for a reason, he said slowly. Either he wants me to stop the breaches, or he wants to draw you to specific points in the dimensional framework for his own purposes. Vila finished, her hunter's instincts clearly suspicious. Regardless of his intentions, Arya interjected, the breaches must be addressed. If left unchecked, they will continue to expand until dimensional collapse becomes inevitable. Goku nodded, his resolve hardening. Then we start with the locations I was shown. If it's a trap, we'll deal with that when we find it. If not, we might learn more about what we're facing. An unnecessarily risky approach, Arya observed, but logically sound given our limited options. I will accompany you, Misa offered unexpectedly. My shadow abilities allow me to perceive disturbances in the dimensional fabric that others might miss. And if Chronos threatens the shadow realm, my people's safety depends on stopping him. Vila nodded sharply. I'm coming too. If we're hunting a god, you need someone with experience tracking divine prey. Goku looked between them, the cosmic huntress with her metallic skin and lethal precision. The Shadow Empress with her mysterious power and quiet determination, and the Divine Architect with her mathematical nature and analytical mind. 3 beings from vastly different realms, united by the threat facing all reality. I should warn you, he said with a hint of his old smile, following me tends to lead to dangerous situations. We're already facing multiversal collapse, Vila replied dryly. How much more dangerous could it get? You'd be surprised, Goku answered, more seriously than she expected. Whis tapped his staff lightly against the crystal floor. Must return to Lord Beerus and continue researching Chronos's imprisonment. The Grand Priest should be informed of these developments as well. When do we leave? Misa asked, practical despite the apocalyptic implications of their discussion. Goku closed his eyes briefly, focusing on the knowledge Chronos had implanted, sorting through the jumble of locations to identify the nearest breach point. "There's one in the outer reaches of Universe 7, he said, opening his eyes. Near something called the Celestial Archive. Arya's form visibly tensed, equations accelerating across her skin. The Celestial Archive contains records of all dimensional configurations since the beginning of this cosmic cycle. If Kronos gains access, he could identify every weakness in the multiverse's structure, Misa finished grimly. Then we go now, Goku decided. Before any more damage is done. As he prepared to attempt dimensional slipstreaming, this time with passengers, Goku felt the weight of Hi's new role settling more firmly on his shoulders. The carefree fighter who had lived for the next challenge was gradually transforming into something more complex, a guardian of cosmic balance who understood that some threats transcended simple combat. Yet beneath the divine energy and universal awareness, he remained Son Goku, a warrior who faced impossible odds with determination and an unshockable belief that any challenge could be overcome with the right combination of effort, friendship, and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The fate of the multiverse now depended on that stubborn optimism being justified. "Everyone ready?" he asked, divine energy swirling around him as he prepared for dimensional transit. 3 nods answered him, each being bringing unique abilities and perspectives to their unlikely alliance. "Then let's go see what Kronos wants us to find." Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Divine Architect. Dimensional travel with passengers proved substantially more challenging than solo traversal. As Goku guided his companions through the membrane between realities, he felt their distinct energies creating interference patterns with his own. Arya's mathematical precision provided stability, while Vela's hunter instincts sharpened their trajectory. Most unsettling was Misa's shadow essence, which seemed to bend the dimensional pathways around them like gravity warping space. "Focus on the destination," Arya instructed, her diamond eyes tracking the swirling chaos of the between space. "Your passengers amplify deviation tendencies by approximately 327%. Goku nodded, concentrating on the coordinates Kronos had planted in his mind. The Celestial Archive, a repository of dimensional knowledge that predated the current cosmic cycle. He visualized it with surprising clarity despite never having seen it before, another unsettling gift from the imprisoned god. "Something's wrong," Misa warned, her shadow form rippling with tension. "The pathways are contaminated." Before anyone could question her meaning, reality shuddered around them. What should have been a smooth transition between dimensions became a violent expulsion, as if the very fabric of space-time were rejecting them. They materialized amid chaos. The Celestial Archive wasn't a building or structure as Goku had imagined, but an entire dimension unto itself, a vast cosmic library where knowledge took physical form. Massive shelves constructed from what appeared to be solidified starlight extended infinitely in all directions, each holding crystalline orbs containing eons of dimensional records. Currently, those shelves were being systematically destroyed. Void entities swarmed throughout the archive in unprecedented numbers, consuming the crystalline records with methodical precision. Unlike the chaotic attacks they'd witnessed before, this assault followed a deliberate pattern, targeting specific sections while leaving others untouched. "They're searching for something," Vela observed, materializing her energy bow instantly. "This isn't random destruction." Arya's mathematical form pulsed with visible distress. "The archive contains mapping data for every dimensional configuration since creation. If they access the primordial section," she didn't need to finish. The implications were clear. Whoever controlled the archive could identify every weakness in the multiverse's structure. "We need to secure the central nexus," she continued, equations flowing across her skin with increased urgency. "From there, defensive protocols can be initiated." Goku assessed his situation with a fighter's experienced eye. The void entities hadn't noticed their arrival yet, focused entirely on their methodical destruction. "Where's this central nexus?" Arya pointed toward what appeared to be a distant constellation of blue-white light. "There." The archivists would have retreated there when the attack began. "Archivists?" Goku questioned. "The keepers of cosmic knowledge," Misa explained, her shadow form seeming to blend with the darkness between the shelves. "Ancient beings who record and preserve the history of creation." "Stay close," Goku instructed. "I'll clear a path." Drawing on his newly refined control of divine energy, Goku created a protective field around their group. Unlike his previous raw power projections, this barrier incorporated the harmonization techniques Arya had taught him, mathematical patterns that disrupted the void entity's cohesion on contact. They moved through the archive with determined speed, Goku's barrier disintegrated any shadow entities that came too close. As they progressed, the devastation became more pronounced. Entire sections had been reduced to drifting particulate matter, eons of knowledge consumed beyond recovery. This destruction is precisely targeted, Arya noted, analyzing the pattern as they moved. They're systematically eliminating navigational records for the outer dimensions. The regions bordering Kronos' prison, Misa added grimly. Vela's silver eyes narrowed, erasing the maps that might lead to his containment coordinates. Before they could discuss further implications, our group rounded a massive shelf to find themselves facing an unexpected guardian. A humanoid figure composed entirely of crystalline light hovered before them, wielding what appeared to be a staff formed from condensed knowledge. Its features were indistinct, shifting like pages being rapidly turned, but its defensive posture was unmistakable. State your nature and purpose, it demanded, its voice resonating with countless harmonics, as if millions of scholars spoke simultaneously. I am Arya, Divine Architect of Universe 3, Arya replied formally. These are my associates. We seek the central nexus to assist in archive defense. Quote, the crystalline being studied them, its attention lingering particularly on Goku. The Eternal, it observed. Your emergence was recorded recently. Controversial. Controversial how? Goku asked. The cosmic registry is divided regarding your existence. Some entries predict salvation, others destruction. The being's form rippled, information flowing visibly through its crystalline structure. I am Librarian Prism, third keeper of interdimensional records. The void entities are targeting navigational data for the outer dimensions, Arya informed him. We must secure the remaining records. Prism's form flickered with what might have been alarm. This confirms Elder Codex's theory. Follow me, quickly. The librarian led them through increasing NGLY complex pathways between towering shelves. As they progressed deeper into the archive, the architecture changed, becoming more organic, as if knowledge itself had grown into natural formations rather than being stored in constructed repositories. The central nexus was sealed when the attack began, Prism explained as they moved. The remaining archivists are maintaining emergency containment protocols. But our defenses were not designed to withstand such concentrated assault. How many archivists remain? Misa asked. 17 of the original 42, Prism replied grimly. The hers were consumed while protecting the primordial records. They emerged finally into a vast spherical chamber unlike anything Goku had ever seen. The walls, floor and ceiling, if such terms even lied in this non-Euclidean space, consisted of swirling information made manifest. In the center floated what appeared to be a miniature galaxy, its spiral arms composed of pure knowledge rather than stars. Throughout the chamber, crystalline beings similar to Prism worked frantically at stations that resembled living computer interfaces. Some were injured, their light forms flickering with damaged information patterns. Elder Codex, Prism called, approaching the largest of the crystalline beings. I have brought allies. The being designated as Elder Codex turned from a complex holographic display. Its form more defined than the others, suggesting greater age and stability. Where the other archivists appeared as shifting text and information, Codex's features were almost humanoid, carved from ancient knowledge crystallized into permanent form. The Eternal, Codex observed, focusing immediately on Goku. Your arrival was predicted, though the timing calculations varied significantly. Goku stepped forward respectfully. Despite being newly divine himself, he recognized true ancient wisdom when he encountered it. We're here to help. What exactly are these void things looking for? The cartography of forbidden dimensions, Codex replied, moving toward the central galaxy-like structure. Specifically, the navigational coordinates for what you would call the Infinity Veil, boundary beyond which Kronos was imprisoned. They've already destroyed 63% of the relevant records, another archivist reported, its form flickering with distress. At current progression rates, they will reach the core repository within 43 standard minutes. Where is this core repository? Vila asked. her hunter's instincts clearly assessing defensive possibilities. Codex gestured toward the galactic structure. There, the most critical knowledge is stored at the center of the nexus. Including. The ancient being hesitated, glancing between them. Including the original sealing formulae used to imprison Chronos. The implications landed heavily. If the void entities obtained those formulae, they wouldn't just know where Chronos was imprisoned, they'd know exactly how to free him. We need to evacuate that information immediately, Arya stated, her mathematical nature processing the strategic implications with cold precision. Impossible, Codex replied. The core reposito. Rai is quantum entangled with the archive itself. Moving it would require relocating the entire dimensional space. Then we defend it here, Goku decided, his divine aura flaring with renewed determination. How long before your containment protocols fail? The outer barriers have already been compromised, an archivist reported, its crystalline form dimming with exhaustion. Inner defense layers at 31% integrity and failing. We should expect company soon, Vila translated grimly, testing her energy bow with practiced efficiency. As if summoned by her words, alarms manifested throughout the chamber, not as sound, but as patterns of urgent information flickering across the walls. Breach in progress, Codex announced. Multiple penetration points detected in sectors 7 through 19. Goku turned to his companions. Arya, work with the archivists to strengthen whatever defenses remain. Vila, take high position and target anything that breaks through. Misa, I'll scout through the shadows, the Shadow Empress finished. Her form already dissolving into the darkness between information flows. They won't detect me if I remain in the void spaces. With roles assigned, they moved to their positions with practiced efficiency that belied their short time as a team. Goku watched with quiet approval. Despite their vastly different backgrounds and abilities, each had fallen naturally into cooperative patterns. He approached Elder Codex as the others prepared. What can you tell me about Chronos that might help us fight his forces? The ancient archivist regarded him with eyes that contained eons of recorded knowledge. Chronos was not always the god of endings. Before the current cosmic cycle, he was Chronos the equilibrist, maintainer of temporal balance. What changed him? Corruption. Codex replied simply. Not of the moral kind you might imagine, but fundamental mathematical corruption in the fabric of creation itself. He observed pattern degradation across multiple cosmic cycles and calculated that complete reset was the only viable solution. And the other gods disagreed, Goku surmised. Vehemently. Creation deities view their work as infinitely perfectible through continuous adjustment. Chronos came to believe that corruption compounds exponentially until collapse becomes inevitable. His solution was controlled destruction followed by renewed creation. That doesn't sound entirely unreasonable, Goku observed thoughtfully. Why imprison him? Codex's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a grim smile. Because his control-led destruction would annihilate every existing consciousness across all dimensions. Trillions of souls would cease to exist, not merely die, but be erased from the cosmic record entirely. Before Goku could respond, the chamber shuddered violently. Information patterns across the walls flickered like static interference on a television screen. Inner barriers failing, an archivist announced, its voice fragmenting with stress. Estimated breach in 3 minutes at current deterioration rates. Sooner, Misa's voice emerged from the shadows as her form partially reappeared. They've adapted their attack pattern. They're concentrating on a single point rather than dispersing efforts across multiple barriers. Where? Arya demanded, her hands weaving complex mathematical equations that strengthened sections of the chamber's defensive matrix. Misa pointed toward what would be considered the southern hemisphere of the spherical chamber. There, they've identified a computational weakness in the defensive algorithms. Impossible, Arya objected. The mathematical protections should be impenetrable unless. Her diamond eyes widened with sudden understanding. Unless they have access to architectural knowledge. Like what they might have extracted from missing divine architects, Vila suggested grimly, positioning herself on an elevated information platform with clear sightlines to the indicated breach point. Goku processed this information quickly. Arya, can you reconfigure the defensive matrix? Not quickly enough, she replied, frustration evident in her normally measured voice. I would need to rewrite fundamental equations while simultaneously maintaining current protections. What if you had help? Goku suggested, moving to her side. You taught me harmonization techniques. Maybe I can reinforce the existing patterns while you reconfigure them. Arya hesitated, calculations visibly running across her skin as she assessed the proposal. Theoretically possible, though the precision requirements exceed your current skill level by approximately 47%. I work best under pressure, Goku replied with a confident smile that momentarily transformed Hai's divine countenance into something reminiscent of his former self, the warrior who had faced impossible odds throughout his life and somehow always found a way through. Something in that expression seemed to sway Arya. Very well, position yourself here. She indicated a spot beside her at what appeared to be a mathematical interface composed of pure energy. Focus on maintaining the harmonic pattern I establish while I restructure the underlying formulae. Goku placed his hands on the energy interface, feeling the mathematical patterns flow through his consciousness. This was unlike anything in his martial arts experience, yet not entirely dissimilar. Like maintaining a complex kata while simultaneously adapting to an opponent's attacks. Breach imminent, an archivist warned, its crystalline form flickering with alarm. Arya's hands moved with blinding speed, weaving equations so complex they hurt to look at directly. Now, Goku, maintain the seventh harmonic exactly as I taught you. Goku closed his eyes, focusing on the pattern she described, a specific mathematical frequency that resonated against dimensional distortions. Divine energy flowed from his body into the defensive matrix, temporarily strengthening the existing barriers while Arya rewrote their fundamental structure. The chamber shuddered violently as void entities began their concentrated assault. The point Misa had identified bulged inward, reality itself stretching thin under their attack. Hold the pattern, Arya commanded, her voice strained with unprecedented effort. Deviation will result in catastrophic failure. Sweat beaded on Goku's forehead as he maintained the complex harmonic, fighting against his natural tendency to adapt and improvise. This required perfect, unwavering precision, the opposite of his usual fluid fighting style. The barrier continued to bulge inward, darkness seeping through microscopic fractures in reality. Vila aimed her energy bow at the weakening point, ready to target anything that broke through. Almost, Arya whispered, her mathematical form literally burning with effort, equations flowing across her skin at impossible speeds. 3 more seconds. The barrier shattered. Void entities poured through the breach like liquid shadow, immediately spreading in all directions. Vela's energy arrows struck with unerring accuracy, each dissolving a Dao entity into harmless particles, but there were too many. Maintain the harmonic, Arya shouted, her voice taking on an unprecedented urgency. Just a little longer. Goku held the pattern with stubborn determination. Even as shadow entities flowed toward them, Misa materialized from darkness, her shadow form absorbing several entities before they could reach the mathematical interface. Archive. ISTS deployed crystalline light barriers that temporarily held sections of the swarm at bay. Now, Arya's hands completed a final complex pattern, and the energy interface beneath their palms pulsed with blinding intensity. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The chamber's defensive matrix reconfigured instantaneously, mathematical patterns shifting into new formations that the void entities hadn't encountered before. The shadows that had breached the chamber suddenly found themselves caught in computational loops, their forms destabilizing as the new defensive algorithms targeted their fundamental structure. It's working, an archivist observed as shadow entities began dissolving throughout the chamber. But the victory was short-lived. Even as the first wave disintegrated, a second, larger breach formed on the opposite side of the chamber. This time, what emerged wasn't merely shadow entities, but something altogether more disturbing. A figure stepped through the dimensional tear, humanoid in basic shape, but composed of swirling darkness shot through with what appeared to be fragments of consumed knowledge. Where a face should have been, only a void existed, yet its sama conveyed the impression of cold intellect and calculated purpose. Void Overseer, Misa identified, her shadow form recoiling slightly. They rarely manifest physically. The Overseer surveyed the chamber briefly before its featureless face oriented toward the central galaxy-like structure, the core repository. It raised a hand formed of concentrated void matter, and shadow tendrils extended from its fingertips toward the repository. Stop it, Elder Codex commanded, genuine alarm breaking through his ancient composure. Goku moved without conscious thought, divine energy propelling him across the chamber with impossible speed. He intercepted the shadow tendrils before they could reach the repository, severing them with a precise blade of divine energy. The overseer's attention shifted to him, its void face somehow conveying surprise despite having no features. Eternal, it acknowledged, its voice manifesting directly in their minds rather than through conventional sound. Unexpected variable. What are you? Goku demanded, positioning himself protectively between the entity and the core repository. Why are you destroying knowledge? Knowledge is patterns. Patterns decay. We accelerate inevitable outcomes. The entity's void head tilted slightly. Your existence was not calculated in original projections. Sorry to mess up your math, Goku replied, gathering divine energy in preparation for combat. But I'm not letting you take whatever you're after. The overseer studied him with empty sockets that somehow conveyed ancient intelligence. Your intervention is noted. Adaptation required. Without warning, the entity dissolved into shadow particles that rapidly recombined into a new form, one that sent shock through Goku's divine consciousness. It had talk, and his shape, a shadow duplicate of the eternal Saiyan God, complete with mockingly accurate details down to the galaxy patterns in its eyes. That's disturbing, Vila commented dryly, aiming her energy bow at the shadow duplicate. The copy moved with uncanny precision, mirroring Goku's distinctive fighting stance perfectly. Your patterns are interesting, eternal, complex yet harmonious. We will incorporate them before deletion. Goku circled warily, assessing his duplicate with experienced eyes. Copying my appearance doesn't mean you understand my power. Incorrect. The shadow duplicate raised its hand, generating a perfect replica of Goku's divine energy signature. Your energy patterns have been catalogued. Replication complete to 89.7% accuracy. Without further warning, the duplicate attacked. Goku had fought countless opponents throughout his life, aliens, androids, gods of destruction, but never himself. The shadow copy moved with his exact fighting style, anticipating high-S techniques with perfect precision because they were, fundamentally, his own. Every punch was countered by an identical movement. Each energy projection met its mirrored twin in midair. The duplicate even adapted in real time, learning from each exchange exactly as Goku would. Physical combat patterns assimilated, the entity communicated as they fought. Behavioral algorithms updating. If you've copied me so well, Goku grunted, blocking a punch that would have shattered mountains, then you know I never give up. Persistence subroutine noted. Inefficient but predictable. Their battle raged throughout the chamber. Divine energy clashing against its shadow counterpart with such intensity that reality itself warped around them. Archivists scrambled to protect the core repository as shockwaves threatened its stability. Arya analyzed the fight with mathematical precision, equations flowing across her skin as she calculated possibilities. The entity is achieving 91.3% replica. Tion efficiency and improving with each exchange. Victory through conventional combat is statistically unlikely. Then we need unconventional solutions, Vila replied, tracking the battle with her hunter's eyes. What isn't it copying? Arya's diamond eyes widened slightly. Divine harmonization patterns. It's replicating raw energy output but not the dimensional frequencies you established during our training. Misa emerged from the shadows beside them. It can't copy what it doesn't understand. The Void Collective exists outside normal dimensional constraints. They consume reality rather than participating in it. Goku, Arya called out, her voice carrying mathematical precision that cut through the chaos of battle. Harmonic convergence pattern, like we practiced. Despite being locked in furious combat, Goku caught her meaning instantly. The dimensional harmonization techniques they'd spent months perfecting, techniques based on mathematical principles foreign to the Void Collective's nature. He disengaged from his duplicate with a powerful energy burst that created momentary distance, then assumed a stance unlike any in his normal combat repertoire. This wasn't a fight-in-G position but a mathematical one, arms and legs positioned at precise angles that resonated with dimensional constants. Unknown configuration, the duplicate observed, momentarily hesitating. Purpose unclear. That's the point, Goku replied with a slight smile. He began a sequence of movements that resembled a martial arts kata only in the most superficial sense. Each position, transition a ND energy emission followed precise mathematical ratios that Arya had drilled into him during their training, movements designed not to attack an opponent directly, but to harmonize dimensional frequencies. The duplicate attempted to copy him, its form shifting to match his stance. But without understanding the underlying mathematical principles, its movements were merely hollow mimicry, the form without the function. Pattern recognition failing, it communicated, its copied voice showing the first hints of uncertainty. Purpose of movements does not compute with combat objectives. Because I'm not fighting you, Goku explained. Continuing the complex sequence, I'm reharmonizing you. The harmonic pattern he generated began to resonate with the chamber's defensive matrices, the very algorithms Arya had reconfigured moments earlier. As the resonance built, the duplicate's shadow substance began to vibrate discordantly, its cohesion deteriorating. Error. Structural integrity compromised. Adaptation impossible without baseline parameters. Arya joined Goku, her mathematical form flowing through complementary patterns that amplified the harmonic effect. Together, they created a dimensional resonance that targeted the fundamental difference between divine energy and void matter. The duplicate's form began to dissolve, unable to maintain cohesion within the harmonized field they generated. It made one last attempt to attack, lunging toward Goku with shadow tendrils extended, only to pass harmlessly through him as its substance lost material coherence. Remarkable, it communicated as its form dispersed into shadow particles. Chronos calculated correctly. You were indeed the catalyst. The shadow particles scattered throughout the chamber, briefly swirling into a pattern that resembled a familiar symbol, one that Goku recognized from the knowledge Chronos had implanted in his mind. Then they vanished entirely, along with the remaining void entities. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by the subtle hum of information flowing through the archive's systems. Is it over? An archivist asked tentatively. For now, Elder Codex replied, approaching the core repository to check for damage. Though I suspect this was merely a preliminary assessment rather than their primary incursion. Goku turned to Arya, genuine appreciation in his expression. Your training saved us. I couldn't have generated that harmonic pattern without what you taught me. Something flickered across Arya's mathematical features, an expression that might have been surprise, or perhaps pleasure at his acknowledgement. Your application of dimensional harmonics was impressively adaptive. You integrated the mathematical principles into combat methodology in ways I hadn't anticipated. Coming from her, this was extraordinary praise. Goku had learned enough about her during their training to recognize how significant such acknowledgement was. What did it mean? Vila asked, joining them with her energy bow still at ready. About you being the catalyst. I'm not sure, Goku admitted. But Chronos definitely wanted us here. The question is why? What did he want us to find? Perhaps this, Elder Codex suggested, approaching with what appeared to be a crystalline sphere floating above his palm. Within it, information swirled in patterns too complex to follow. T.S. activated during your harmonic convergence with the void entity. What is it? Misa asked, her shadow form rippling with cautious curiosity. A temporal echo, Codex explained. A message from T.H.E. past encoded in dimensional frequencies that can only be accessed under specific conditions. Like when an eternal god generates a harmonic convergence pattern, Arya surmised, equations flowing across her skin as she analyzed the sphere. Highly specific activation parameters, meaning it was left specifically for someone like me to find, Goku concluded. Can we see this message? Elder Codex nodded, bringing the sphere to the center of the chamber. Observe. The crystalline sphere expanded, its contents flowing outward to create a three-dimensional projection that filled the central space. The image resolved into a figure that caused immediate reaction from everyone present. A being composed of what appeared to be living time stood before them, his form simultaneously ancient and youthful. Constantly shifting between states of existence. Where his eyes should have been, hourglasses slowly turned, measuring eons with each grain of sand. His body was wrapped in what looked like the fabric of time itself. Flowing around him in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Chronos, Elder Codex confirmed unnecessarily. The image of the imprisoned god regarded them with its hourglass eyes. Somehow giving the impression it could see them across the vast gulf of time. Eternal, the recording addressed Goku directly, its voice resonating with temporal harmonics. If you are viewing this, then my calculations have proven correct. You have emerged in response to the dimensional decay I predicted eons ago. Goku stepped forward, instinctively responding though he knew it was merely a recording. What decay? The one your Void Collective is causing. As if anticipating his question, the recording continued. The Void Collective is not my creation, but a consequence of my imprisonment. When the creation gods sealed me beyond the infinity veil, they disrupted the cosmic equilibrium I maintained. The void entities are reality's immune response, attempts to correct mathematical corruption that has been accumulating since my removal. Convenient explanation, Vila muttered skeptically. Again, as if hearing her, the recording addressed the objection. You have reason to doubt my words. The victors write history, and I was cast as villain in the narrative of creation. But ask yourselves, why would the Eternals only emerge during periods of fundamental cosmic instability? Because the multiverse requires periodic recalibration to prevent total collapse. The image shifted, showing mathematical models of cosmic decay, patterns of corruption spreading through dimensional frameworks with increasing speed. The creation gods fear true death, Kronos continued. They built a multiverse that perpetuates itself through endless minor adjustments, refusing to acknowledge that corruption compounds exponentially. Their approach merely delays inevitable catastrophic failure, a failure that would annihilate all existence without possibility of recreation. He's Su-Ji jesting his controlled destruction is the compassionate option, Arya observed, her diamond eyes tracking the mathematical models with professional interest. Fascinating rationalization. The recording of Kronos turned its hourglass gaze directly toward her. Not rationalization, divine architect. Mathematical certainty. Your own calculations would confirm my projections if you extended them beyond the artificial limitations imposed by your creators. Arya's form stiffened slightly, equations flowing faster across her skin, indicating emotional response despite her mathematical nature. Eternal. Kronos addressed Goku again. You stand at a cosmic crossroads. The dimensional decay has accelerated beyond the capacity for conventional repair. The creation gods will soon recognize this truth. But their response will be inadequate, patchwork solutions to fundamental flaws. The image shifted again, showing a map of specific locations across multiple universes, locations that matched precisely with the knowledge Kronos had implanted in Goku's mind during their brief contact. These are the temples of cosmic recalibration, structures I created before my imprisonment that contain the tools necessary for controlled reset. They have remained dormant for eons, hidden from divine perception. But now, as dimensional integrity fails, they are reactivating, becoming visible once more. That explains the reports of ancient structures materializing across multiple universes, Misa noted. The Supreme Kais have been frantically investigating these appearances. Seek these temples, eternal, Kronos continued. Within them, you will find the truth beyond the creation myths you have been taught. You will understand why you emerged at this precise moment in cosmic history. And you will face a choice that will determine the fate of all existence. The image began to fade, the temporal echo reaching its conclusion. But before it vanished entirely, Kronos delivered a final message. They will tell you I seek to destroy everything. The truth is more complex. I seek to save what can be saved before inevitable collapse renders recreation impossible. The creation gods would sacrifice everything for the illusion of continuity. I would sacrifice much to ensure true renewal. The choice, ultimately, will be yours. The projection collapsed, returning to its crystalline sphere form. Silence fell over the chamber as each being processed the implications of Kronos' message. A compelling narrative, Elder Codex finally observed. Particularly dangerous because it contains elements of verifiable truth. Which elements? Goku asked, struggling to separate fact from manipulation in the ancient god's message. The mathematical models of dimensional decay are accurate, Arya admitted reluctantly. Equations flowing slowly across her skin as she processed the implications. Though his conclusions regarding inevitable collapse are highly debatable. And these temples he mentioned? Vila questioned. Are they real? Very real, Elder Codex confirmed. We have records of anomalous structures materializing across 17 universes within the past 30 standard days. Their architectural composition defies conventional analysis, but their sudden appearance coincides precisely with accelerating dimensional decay. Goku studied the coordinates still linger, ing in his mind, locations of temples that supposedly contain some cosmic truth. He's trying to guide me toward something. The question is whether I should follow. It could be an elaborate trap, Vila suggested, her hunter's instincts naturally suspicious, designed to manipulate you into releasing him. Or, Misa countered softly, there could be truth in his warnings. The refugees in my Hado realm speak of cycles of creation and destruction stretching back before recorded history. Some insist that periodic reset prevented worse catastrophes. The archivists must take no position on such matters, Elder Codex stated. Though his crystalline features suggested concern. Our purpose is to record, not interpret. However, he hesitated, information patterns flowing rapidly through his form. I can confirm that certain mathematical irregularities have been deliberately omitted from official cosmic records. Discrepancies that might support portions of Kronos' claims. So we investigate. Goku decided after a moment's consideration. We find one of these temples and see for ourselves. If Kronos is manipulating us, we'll discover his true intentions. If there's truth to his warnings, we need to know. A logical approach, Arya agreed, though with noticeable reluctance. Though investigating structures created by the God of Endings carries significant risk. Which temple should we start with? Misa asked practically. Goku closed his eyes, reviewing the implanted knowledge. There's one in the celestial borderlands between Universe 7 and Universe 6. According to the information Kronos shared, it's the least heavily guarded. Guarded by what? Vila questioned sharply. He didn't specify, Goku admitted. Just that it would be easier to access than the others. Before you depart, Elder Codex interjected, there is one more piece of information you should have. The ancient archivist approached, holding another crystalline sphere, smaller than the Phi RST and pulsing with subtle emerald light. This contains navigational data for safe passage through the celestial borderlands. The pathways between universes have grown treacherous as dimensional decay progresses. Arya accepted the sphere, integrating its information directly into her mathematical consciousness. Interesting. These routes circumvent standard dimensional checkpoints. Necessity dictates unusual measures, Elder Codex replied. The borderlands are no longer following predictable physical laws. Standard navigation would likely prove fatal, even for an eternal. Goku thanked the archivist, then turned to his companions. We should depart immediately. The archive seems secure for now, but we don't know when the void entities might return. I will accompany you to the celestial borderlands, Arya announced unexpectedly. The statement seemed to surprise even her, equations momentarily stuttering across her skin. The navigational data suggests mathematical anomalies may require precise calibration to traverse safely. Vila raised an eyebrow, her metallic features showing subtle amusement. Nothing to do with scientific curiosity about ancient temples, I'm sure. Intellectual investigation of historically significant architectural structures would be a secondary consideration at best, Arya replied primly, though her mathematical patterns suggested auth. RWISE to those who had learned to read her expressions. Goku smiled slightly, the first genuine smile since their arrival at the archive. Despite the cosmic stakes and ominous warnings, there was something reassuringly familiar about the dynamic developing between his unlikely companions. It reminded him of countless adventures throughout his life, where diverse allies had come together against seemingly impossible odds. Let's go, then, he said, preparing to initiate dimensional transit. Everyone stay close. The borderlands might be rough. As he gathered his divine energy for the jump between realities, Goku felt a subtle shift in the archive's atmosphere. A momentary darkening that had nothing to do with light, as if something vast had briefly turned its attention toward them. We're being watched, Misa whispered, her shadow form rippling with tension. By what? Vila demanded, scanning their surroundings with hunter's alertness. Not what, Misa corrected grimly. By whom? The Supreme Kai Council has taken notice of our activities. Is that a problem? Goku asked, divine energy still swirling around him in preparation for departure. Potentially, Arya replied, her diamond eyes fixed on something beyond normal perception. The Council is divided regarding your existence, eternal. Some view you as salvation, others as catastrophe. Story of my life, Goku remarked with surprising lightness. Seems like half the universe has wanted me dead at some point. Hasn't stopped me yet. With that characteristically optimistic assessment, he completed the dimensional transit formula. And reality folded around them. The Supreme Kai Council chamber existed in a pocket dimension accessible only to the highest divine authorities of the multiverse. Unlike the gaudy opulence often associated with godly domains, the chamber was elegant in its minimalism, a perfect sphere of pure white material that responded to the thoughts of its occupants. Currently, that sphere contained 15 Supreme Kais representing their respective universes, their emotions manifesting as subtle color patterns rippling across the chamber's surface. The Eternal has discovered Kronos' message, observed Kai, Supreme Kai of Universe 11. His typically austere features were tightened with concern. This accelerates the timetable considerably. The question remains, countered Fua, the portly Supreme Kai of Universe 6, whether his emergence represents cosmic correction or catalyst for destruction. The prophecies are frustratingly ambiguous. Prophecies, scoffed ill, the ancient Supreme Kai of Universe 1. His withered form belied the immense power and knowledge he commanded. Poetic interpretations of mathematical probabilities. The calculations are what matter, and they suggest cosmic disruption is inevitable regardless of the Eternal's actions. At the center of their deliberations stood the Grand Minister, his placid expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. As personal attendant to the Omni King and highest authority present, his words carried immeasurable weight. The emergence of an Eternal is indeed significant, he acknowledged, his melodious voice cutting through the debate. However, what concerns me more directly is the reappearance of Kronos' temples. Their dimensional signatures were expunged from official records eons ago for good reason. The temples should be destroyed immediately, insisted Awamo, the elegantly stern Supreme Kai of Universe 1. Before the Eternal can access whatever corrupted knowledge they contain. Destruction would be premature, countered Shin, Supreme Kai of Universe 7. Though younger and less experienced than many of his counterparts, his direct connection to recent events lent his words particular relevance. Son Goku has saved Universe 7 repeatedly. His character suggests he would not be easily manipulated, even by Kronos. Character. Aya, the analytical Supreme Kai of Universe 3 adjusted his glasses skeptically. A mortal fighter who stumbled into godhood through statistical anomaly. His psychological profile indicates impulsive behavior and a concerning enthusiasm for combat. Hardle, why reassuring when cosmic balance hangs in the balance? You misjudge him, Shin insisted. His simplicity masks profound wisdom, and his combat prowess is merely the most visible aspect of a deeply compassionate nature. Regardless, the Grand Minister interrupted smoothly, we must consider all possibilities. If Kronos' mathematical projections contained even partial truth. Heresy, whispered Peru, the diminutive Supreme Kai of Universe 2. To suggest the God of Endings might have been correct. Not correct, the Grand Minister clarified. But perhaps not entirely wrong either. He-dimensional decay is accelerating beyond predicted parameters. That much is objectively verifiable. Silence fell over the council as they confronted implications none wished to face. If the multi-verse truly did require periodic reset to prevent terminal corruption, then the foundations of their cosmic governance were built on dangerous denial. What would you have us do? Asked Kai finally, addressing the Grand Minister directly. Observe, for now, came the measured response. The Eternal must make his own discoveries without our interference. Kronos' temples contain truths, half-truths, and carefully crafted deceptions in equal measure. How Son Goku navigates these will reveal much about the true purpose of his emergence. And if he makes the wrong choice? Awamo pressed. Grand Minister's expression remained serene, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then contingency measures exist. The Omni King has been informed of developments. His judgment, as always, will be final. The implications hung heavily in the chamber. If the eternal Saiyan God made choices deemed threatening to cosmic stability, his destruction would be assured, regardless of previous heroics or good intentions. There is another matter requiring attention, the Grand Minister continued after a moment. The Saiyan Prince, Vegeta, has been investigating alternative paths to divine power. His activities have taken him to the ruins of Sadala Prime. This announcement caused visible alarm among several Kais. The ancestral Saiyan homeworld, Fu exclaimed. Those ruins were Specifica, LLY quarantined after the Divergence Wars. Indeed, the Grand Minister confirmed. It appears his connection to the Eternal has led him to uncover historical records regarding Saiyan involvement in ancient cosmic conflicts, records deliberately obscured to prevent certain evolutionary paths from recurring. He must be stopped, Il declared flatly. The Saiyan divine lineage was terminated for good reason. Perhaps, the Grand Minister mused, or perhaps it returns precisely when needed. The multiverse has always demonstrated remarkable self-correction mechanisms. You suggest we allow not one but two Saiyans to achieve divine status beyond our control? Peru asked incredulously. I suggest, the Grand Minister replied with subtle emphasis, that we consider the possibility to what appears as chaos may in fact be cosmic order reasserting itself through unexpected vectors. The council chamber fell silent once more as the gathered Kais contemplated this unsettling perspective. Throughout cosmic history, they had viewed themselves as the architects and administrators of divine order. The notion that true cosmic balance might manifest through unpredictable mortal vessels challenged their most fundamental assumptions. Watch them both, the Grand Minister concluded. The Eternal and the Prince. Their paths are converging toward a nexus point even my calculations cannot fully predict. The outcome may well determine whether this cosmic cycle continues or concludes. With that ominous assessment, the Supreme Kai Council session adjourned, its members departing to their respective universes with troubled thoughts and divided opinions regarding the eternal Saiyan God whose emergence had thrown cosmic governance into unprecedented uncertainty. The celestial Orderlands defied conventional description. Neither fully in Universe 7 nor Universe 6, the region existed as a quantum superposition of multiple dimensional states, a twilight zone where physical laws became suggestions at best. Goku guided his companions through this treacherous non-space using the navigational data provided by Elder Codex, combined with Arya's mathematical precision. Without either, safe passage would have been impossible. Fascinating, Arya observed as they traversed a particularly unstable region where time itself fractured into crystalline shards. The dimensional deca, Y has accelerated exponential deterioration of fundamental constants in this sector. Is that why we keep seeing the same nebula from different angles? Vila asked dryly, indicating a stellar format. Ion that had appeared before them 4 times already, each time with slightly different coloration. Spatial recursion loop, Arya confirmed. Reality is essentially stuttering, repeating probability. Patterns without proper sequential progression. How much farther to this temple? Misa inquired, her shadow form providing natural protection against the region's chaotic energies. Goku consulted. The knowledge Chronos had implanted, a disconcerting experience, like accessing memories that weren't his own. Not far. It should be just beyond that, gravitational discontinuity. He indicated WH. It appeared to be a region of space where light bent at impossible angles, suggesting extreme distortion of spacetime itself. That looks problematic, Vila noted with professional understatement. Conventional transit would be fatal. Arya calculated, equations flowing rapidly across her skin. The gravitational shear would disintegrate standard matter patterns instantly. Then we don't use conventional transit, Goku decided. Drawing on his training with Arya, he visualized the harmonization pattern that would allow them to resonate with rather than resist the gravitational distortion. Everyone, stay very close and synchronize your energy with mine. As his companions moved into tight formation around him, Goku generated a divine energy field that encompassed them all. Unlike his previous raw power projections, this field incorporated precise mathematical harmonics, tuned specifically to the unique dimensional frequencies of the borderlands. Remarkable adaptation, Arya commented, observing the patterns he'd created. You've incorporated 14-dimensional harmonics I only demonstrated once during our training. I pay attention when my life depends on it, Goku replied with a hint of his old humor. They approached the gravitational discontinuity, their harmonized field causing the destructive forces to flow around them rather than tearing them apart. It was diving into a raging river but somehow remaining in a perfect pocket of calm amid the chaos. As they passed through, reality stabilized unexpectedly. The chaotic energies of the borderlands gave way to a region of perfect stillness, a sanctuary of order amid dimensional decay. This is unexpected, Arya observed, her mathematical form registering surprise through accelerated equation flows. An island of perfect dimensional stability within the most chaotic region of the borderlands. Before them floated what could only be one of Kronos' temples. Unlike the ostentatious structures often associated with divine beings, this was elegantly minimalist, a perfect dodecahedron composed of material that appeared simultaneously crystalline and fluid, constantly flowing yet maintaining perfect geometric form. "It's beautiful," Misa whispered, her shadow form rippling with something like reverence. "And completely impossible," Arya added, her diamond eyes wide with mathematical wonder. "The architectural integrity violates 7 fundamental laws of dimensional physics. Is that good or bad?" Goku asked, approaching the structure cautiously. "Neither. It's simply unprecedented. This structure isn't merely built within reality, it's built from reality itself. The fundamental dimensional constants are part of its architecture." Vila circled the temple, her hunter's eyes searching for threats or traps. "No obvious defenses. No guardians. Kronos said this one was less heavily guarded, but I'm not seeing any security at all." "Perhaps the borderlands themselves are defense enough," Misa suggested. "Few beings could navigate the dimensional chaos we just traversed." They approached the temple's single entrance, a doorway shaped from what appeared to be frozen time, its surface rippling like water while maintaining perfect structural integrity. "How do we get in?" Vila asked, studying the entrance with professional suspicion. As if in response to her question, the surface of the doorway shimmered. And symbols appeared, mathematical formulae of such complexity that even Arya seemed momentarily taken aback. "It's a calibration sequence," she identified after careful study. "A dimensional key requiring precise harmonic input." Goku studied the symbols, recognizing patterns similar to what Arya had taught him during their training. "I think I can solve this," he said with surprising confidence. "You?" Vila questioned skeptically. "No offense, but mathematical puzzles don't seem like your specialty." "They weren't," Goku acknowledged. "But 3 months training with Arya taught me to see patterns differently." He approached the doorway, divine energy gathering around his hands. "This is a harmonic sequence, like a fighting technique broken into its component movements." Under the watchful eyes of his companions, Goku began to manipulate his divine energy in precise patterns matching the mathematical formulae displayed on the doorway. It was like performing an impossibly complex kata, each movement flowing into the next with mathematical precision. Arya watched with undisguised fascination, equations flowing rapidly across her skin as she analyzed his work. "Remarkable. He's intuitively grasping dimensional harmonics that would require extensive calculation for most divine architects." "Is that supposed to happen?" Misa asked suddenly, pointing to the symbols on the doorway which had begun to glow with increasing intensity. "I believe so," Arya replied, though uncertainty flickered through her mathematical patterns. "The resonance frequency is approaching critical threshold for dimensional alignment." Goku completed the final sequence, divine energy flowing from his hands in perfect mathematical harmony with the temple's own frequencies. The symbols flared blindingly for a moment, then dissolved into the doorway's surface. With a sound like crystal bells resonating across infinite distances, the entrance rippled and parted, revealing a corridor of impossible architecture within. "It worked," Goku stated with simple satisfaction. "It shouldn't have," Arya murmured, more to herself than the others. "The mathematical complexity should have required precise calculation, not intuitive execution." "Maybe that's the point," Misa suggested thoughtfully. "Perhaps Kronos designed his temples to respond to harmonic intuition rather than calculated precision, a test of understanding versus mere knowledge." Vila remained practical as always. "Philosophical debates can wait. We have an ancient temple to explore and potential cosmic truths to uncover." She materialized her energy bow, holding it ready. "I still don't trust the lack of obvious defenses." They entered cautiously, Goku leading while Vila guarded their rear. The interior defied conventional spatial logic. Corridors bent at angles that shouldn't connect, chambers existed simultaneously above and beside each other, stairways led in directions that had no proper orientation in 3-dimensional space. Non-Euclidean architecture, Arya observed with professional appreciation. "The temple exists partially outside conventional spacetime. Can you track our position?" Goku asked, increasingly aware that conventional navigation would be useless in this impossible space. Not precisely, Arya admitted, an unusual concession from her typically confident mathematical nature. The temple's dimensional coordinates are constantly shifting while maintaining perfect internal consistency, like a geometric puzzle that rearranges itself continuously. Great, Vila muttered, so we could be walking in circles without knowing it. I don't think so, Goku replied, following an instinct he couldn't quite explain. There's a pattern to the shifts, like a rhythm guiding us towards something. Quote, he led them deeper into the temple, making turns and choices that seemed arbitrary but somehow always progressed forward rather than looping back. It was following a subtle current in a vast ocean, invisible but perceptible to those sensitive to its flow. After what might have been minutes or hours, time itself seemed fluid within the temple. They emerged into a vast central chamber that stole the breath of even these extraordinary beings. The chamber was a perfect sphere, but its contents defied comprehension. At its center floated what appeared to be a miniature galaxy, not a model or representation, but an actual cosmic structure condensed to observable scale. Around this galactic heart orbited countless smaller structures, planets, stars, and stranger celestial bodies that had no names in any mortal language. It's a cosmic observatory, Arya whispered, her mathematical form practically vibrating with wonder. A perfect replication of our local galactic cluster, rendered in actual stellar matter. Not a replication, came a new voice, resonating throughout the chamber with temporal harmonics. A projection of what was, what is, and what may yet be. They turned toward the source to find a figure materializing from the very fabric of the chamber. Not Kronos himself, but clearly one of his creations, a being composed of temporal energy shaped into humanoid form. Its features shifting constantly between youth, maturity, and ancient age. I am Kairos, keeper of this sanctuary of potential, the being introduced itself, voice echoing with subtle temporal reverberations. The first visitors in 17,412 years. You were earlier than calculated, eternal. You were expecting me, Goku asked. Eventually, Kairos replied with a gesture that somehow conveyed both precision and ambiguity. Kronos' calculations allowed for variable emergence timelines. Your particular manifestation occurred 73 years before median probability projections. Why are we here? Vila demanded directly, her energy bow held casually but ready. What truth does Kronos want us to find? Kairos regarded her, with eyes that shifted between hourglasses and spiral galaxies. Direct questions from a direct being. As expected from the last hunter. Before Vila could question this cryptic identification, Kairos continued. You are here to witness evidence that has been systematically removed from cosmic records. Observe. The temporal being gestured toward the miniature galaxy at the chamber's center. The stellar configuration shifted, accelerating through what appeared to be the passage of eons in moments. As they watched, a pattern emerged, a subtle but unmistakable degradation in the cosmic structure. What are we seeing? Misa asked, her shadow form rippling with unease. Mathematical corruption in the fabric of reality itself, Arya answered before Kairos could respond. Her diamond eyes tracked the patterns with growing concern. Dimensional constants shifting beyond standard deviation parameters. Precisely, Kairos confirmed. What begins as microscopic variance compounds exponentially across cosmic time. Eventually, the miniature galaxy's degradation accelerated dramatically, stars winking out not through normal stellar life cycles but through fundamental physical breakdown. Entire regions of space collapsed not into black holes but into nothingness, reality itself unraveling. Total dimensional failure, Arya whispered, equations flowing frantically across her skin as she processed the implications. Complete cosmic collapse without possibility of renewal. This is what Kronos foresaw, Kairos explained. Not merely the end of this cosmic cycle, which would be Nadu. Raw and expected, but the end of possibility itself. A corruption so fundamental that recreation becomes impossible. And his solution? Goku asked quietly, watching the simulated destruction with solemn eyes. Kairos gestured again, and the galactic model reset to an earlier configuration. Controlled dimensional recalibration. A partial unwinding of cosmic complexity, returning to a state of balanced potential before corruption becomes terminal. The simulation showed a different progression. parts of the galaxy dissolving in patterns that appeared destructive but somehow preserved core structural integrity. While many individual stars and planets disappeared, the fundamental framework remained intact. He would sacrifice trillions of lives, Vila observed coldly, to preserve the possibility of future trillions. Kairos countered without defensiveness. The mathematics are irrefutable. Terminal corruption ensures no future life can emerge. Partial recalibration preserves the cosmic seed pattern. And the creation gods rejected this solution, Misa surmised, preferring continuous adjustment to catastrophic reset. They believed, perhaps still believe, that infinitesimal corrections can indefinitely delay terminal corruption, Kairos confirmed. Kronos calculated otherwise. These are just projections, Goku noted, studying the simulation with unexpected insight. Mathematical models based on certain assumptions. How do we know they're accurate? Something like approval flickered across Kairos's shifting features. A sophisticated question from an ostensibly simple being. As expected from an eternal. The temporal keeper gestured once more, and a new display appeared beside the galaxy model, a real-time representation of dimensional stability across multiple universes. Current measurements, Kairos explained, taken continuously since Kronos' imprisonment. The rate of corruption has accelerated precisely according to his projections, despite the creation god's continuous adjustments. Arya approached the display, her mathematical nature allowing her to interpret the complex data directly. What she saw caused visible distress, equations flowing chaotically across her skin. The correlation coefficient is perfect, she admitted reluctantly. Every deviation, every acceleration in decay rates, matches Kronos' predictive model with 99.97% accuracy. So he was right, Goku asked, the implications settling heavily on his divine consciousness. His diagnosis appears correct, Arya clarified carefully. Whether his prescribed treatment is the only solution remains open to debate. A debate with diminishing relevance as terminal corruption approaches, Kairos observed without emotion. The creation gods continue seeking alternative solutions. But time, the one resource that cannot be created, grows short. Goku studied the simulations with uncharacteristic stillness. Throughout his life, he had faced threats to Earth, to Universe 7. Even briefly to the multiverse during the Tournament of Power. But those had been external dangers that could be defeated through strength, skill, and determination. This was different, a fundamental flaw in the fabric of existence itself. What would Kronos have me do? He finally asked. Why show me this? Because you are unique among Eternals, Kairos replied. Most emerge fully divine, without mortal experience or perspective. You retain your essential nature despite transcendence, a being who understands both cosmic necessity and individual value. That doesn't answer my question, Goku pressed. Kronos believes you might navigate a middle path, one neither he nor the creation gods could conceive alone. A recalibration that preserves more than his solution would allow, while de-dressing fundamental corruption the creation gods refuse to acknowledge. And if I can't find this hypothetical middle path, then the choice remains binary, Kairos stated simply. Allow termina corruption to proceed until all possibility ends, or implement partial recalibration accepting the tremendous but finite cost. The temporal keeper studied Goku with shifting eyes that somehow conveyed both ancient wisdom and genuine curiosity. What would you sacrifice to ensure existence continues, eternal? Planets, star systems, entire universes. Where does your calculus of compassion draw its boundaries? It was the most profound question Goku had ever faced, one that transcended combat, training, even his previous experiences with godhood. This wasn't about becoming stronger or defeating a villain. This was about fundamental existence itself. I need time to process this, he said finally. To verify these claims independently. Wise, Kairos acknowledged. Kronos would expect nothing less. The temples will remain accessible to you now that the first has recognized your harmonic signature. Explore them. Confirm or disprove these projections through your own investigation. The temporal keeper's form began to fade, dispersing back into the fabric of the chamber. But do not delay over long, eternal. Mathematical corruption accelerates exponentially once certain thresholds are crossed. By my calculations, critical irreversibility occurs in approximately 712 standard days. Less than 2 years, Misa translated quietly. To make a decision that affects all existence. Vila added grimly. As Kairos disappeared completely, the chamber's illumination dimmed slightly, leaving them alone with the simulated galaxy and its troubling projections. Could the models be falsified? Goku asked Arya directly, respecting her mathematical expertise. Manipulated to support Kronos' conclusions. The divine architect studied the data silently for several moments. Equations flowing across her skin in complex analytical patterns. Possible but unlikely, she finally answered. The mathematical integrity appears sound. More concerning is that these projections align with anomalies I've observed but been unable to fully explain within standard dimensional theory. So Kronos might be right, Goku concluded quietly. About the problem, yes, Arya clarified. About his solution being the only option, that requires further investigation. Which we should continue elsewhere, Vila suggested pragmatically. This temple has provided information but no immediate threats. We should explore another before drawing conclusions. Agreed, Misa added. My shadow realm contains beings from previous cosmic cycles. Some might have relevant knowledge regarding Kronos' claims. Goku nodded, his divine features set in uncharacteristic seriousness. We'll visit your realm next, then. If refugees from past cycles exist, their perspective could be valuable. As they prepared to depart, Goku took one last look at the simulated galaxy with its projections of eventual dissolution. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled more firmly on shoulders that had already carried the fate of worlds. 712 days, he murmured to himself. To find a third option or make an impossible choice. You won't face it alone, Arya stated unexpectedly. Her mathematical voice carrying unusual warmth. Collaborative problem solving increases solution probability by statistically significant margins. Goku smiled slightly, recognizing this as her analytical way of offering support. Thank you. I have a feeling I'll need all the help I can get. With that, he gathered his divine energy and opened a dimensional pathway out of the temple, leaving behind troubling revelations but carrying new purpose. Whether Kronos was savior or destroyer, manipulator or prophet, remained to be determined. But one thing was certain, the universe had once again placed its greatest challenges before Son Goku, trusting his simple heart to find wisdom where even gods had failed. Chapter 3 End.